Chapter 766. Forgiveness. But upon hearing Qiao Xian's request, Madame Qiao couldn't help but feel annoyed. She believed that Qiao Xian was being far too unruly. Where did they think they could just take a nap? Did they forget how they used to behave in the past? In her previous days she would have never dared to make such a request. Although Madame Qiao wanted to give a resounding negative answer, she restrained herself from bursting out in anger. It was fortunate that she was out of sight. Deciding to accommodate their request, Madame Qiao instructed the servants to find a suitable place for Qiao Xian, Lixia, and Liqiao to rest. The courtyard was carefully prepared, and despite some wilted flowers on the table, an array of pastries, snacks, and drinks were served. However, Lixia and Liqiao couldn't help but voice their dissatisfaction upon seeing the pastries and snacks. The pastries lack the smoothness of ours. They are so roughly made. The tea has no scent and looks far inferior to what we have at home. And these flowers, they are not as pretty or fragrant as ours. Qiao Xian couldn't help but be amused by their complaints. After all, she was the one who had created those pastries at home, using the finest ingredients. The tea she served was made from the most precious tea leaves, cultivated and nurtured under her watchful eye with her unique powers. Naturally, nothing could compare to the quality she had achieved. The Qiao family was no longer a threat to her. Together with Shao Yunduan, they had been strategizing on how to sever ties with the Qiao family. They had no intention of maintaining any closeness with such tasteless and shameless individuals. Soon their plans would come to fruition. As the mistress and maids were engaged in conversation, Concubine Du appeared with the reluctant Qiao Ko in tow. It seemed that Concubine Du had come to beg for forgiveness for their past wrongdoings. The harsh reality of their lives was evident in the worn-out appearances of both Concubine Du and Qiao Ko. Concubine Du, who used to exude arrogance and pride, now seemed devoid of any such expressions. Qiao Xian had no interest in engaging in trivial arguments with them, but she also had no intention of forgiving them easily. What right did they have to beg for her forgiveness now, expecting her to grant it? The previous owner of her body must have endured a great deal of suffering, which was why Qiao Xian herself found it difficult to establish a harmonious relationship with them. Especially Qiao Ko, who had intentionally caused her numerous troubles. You are not in a position to demand forgiveness, and I am not inclined to grant it, Qiao Xian stated firmly. Concubine Du appeared relieved. Second miss, are you saying you have decided to forgive us? Thank you. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding, Concubine Du. The truth is, we have no connection whatsoever. We have never offended each other, nor do we need to seek forgiveness. The best solution is for us to live separately. What are your thoughts on that? Regardless of whether Concubine Du was willing to accept the truth, she was nothing more than a slave to Madame Qiao, bound to carry out her orders regardless of her own desires or dislikes. Rebelling against Madame Qiao's commands was out of the question for her. While Qiao Xian despised Concubine Du for her actions and felt anger towards her, she had no intention of seeking revenge or causing her unnecessary hardship. However, if Concubine Du ever attempted to deceive her or set her up, Qiao Xian would not forgive her, nor would she be accommodating or allow her to have her way. Concubine Du's expression stiffened. After a moment of contemplation, she forced a smile. Second miss, you are correct. Concubine Du had initially planned to beg Qiao Xian for forgiveness, hoping that if Qiao Xian showed leniency, they could form an alliance. In doing so, she would use Qiao Xian's influence to bring down Madame Qiao, while also gaining personal benefits from the situation. However, Qiao Xian proved unexpectedly difficult to persuade. Not daring to linger any longer, Concubine Du muttered a few more uncertain words and hastily departed with Qiao Ko. Lixia and Liqiao glanced disdainfully at them, remarking on the fickleness of both the mother and daughter. Qiao Xian let out a mocking laugh. Concubines can only navigate their existence through such means, constantly searching for a solid footing but never truly finding it. Chapter 767. News disappointed, Concubine Du listened to Qiao Ko's angry outburst. Concubine, do you expect me to beg her for forgiveness? What a joke. How ironic. Qiao Ko had never dared to utter a word against her in their previous lives. Concubine Du sighed, feeling distressed. I can see the end of my life approaching. I am doing this for your own good. Qiao Ko sneered in response. No thanks. Why not? Concubine Du panicked. Your marriage remains unsettled, and Madame Qiao is taking her anger out on us. Do you honestly think she will find a suitable husband for you once we return to the capital? What about marrying someone here? You are Qiao Xian's sister, and Shao Yunduan is a recommended man. Any family you marry into would treat you well because of their connections. Suddenly the idea seemed appealing to Concubine Du. Ah, yes. The Yuezheng family would be a good option. What about young Master Yuezheng? Or perhaps, stop it, Concubine Du. Qiao Ko's face darkened. I am an unmarried woman, and if you continue meddling in my affairs, I will report to Father and Nyather. Stay out of my business. With that, Qiao Ko turned and hurried away. She had no intention of marrying anyone here. The Yuezheng family might be decent, but they didn't compare to the elite families in the capital. Young Master Xie would have been a better choice, but unfortunately he wasn't present. Moreover, the only way for her to live a comfortable life was by ingratiating herself with Qiao Xian. If she followed this path, she could ensure her happiness. She was going back to the capital to snatch Qiao Wei's marriage alliance, causing both Qiao Wei and her mother to suffer and cry in despair. Concubine Du was taken aback, feeling a mix of anger and disappointment at her daughter's callous words. She was doing everything for Qiao Ko's sake, so why was her own child so heartless toward her? Despite her distress and sadness, Concubine Du gathered her resolve once again. She wouldn't abandon her daughter. After all, Qiao Ko was her own flesh and blood. With the funds replenished, Officer Qiao arranged a lavish lunch, aiming to please his daughter and son-in-law. The table was filled with braised abalone, sea cucumber with green onion, and stewed bird's nest, ensuring an extravagant feast for each person. Officer Qiao spared no expense to win the favor of his daughter and son-in-law. Qiao Xian was taken aback. Did her father truly hold such high expectations for her husband? It seemed like a burden and a potential source of bad luck. The lunch appeared to be successful, and soon after, Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan stood up, ready to leave. However, Madame Qiao coughed and addressed Qiao Xian. Your mother intends to take your sisters to the province to visit First Madame Yuezheng. Xian, you must assist your mother in building a strong relationship with First Madame Yuezheng, understand? Madame Qiao wore a smile as she continued, First Madame treats Quan so well. With her support, everything will turn out fine. Old master, you needn't worry. Her words carried an implicit message that if anything were to go wrong, it would be Qiao Xian's responsibility. Qiao Xian inwardly sneered. No wonder she had been treated to such a lavish feast. They were trying to win her over for a favor. She realized she should have anticipated this. Her father had never been generous towards her unless he needed something in return. In response, Qiao Xian forced a smile and said, Don't worry, father. One will do my best. However, she made a silent decision. She would only fulfill what she was capable of doing. Anything beyond that, she would not stoop to their level of shamelessness. Chapter 768. Looking down, Shao Yunduan was taken aback by the repulsive proposal put forth by his father-in-law. It was so distasteful that he almost felt physically sick. He had hoped that if his father-in-law treated Qiao Xian kindly, their relationship might not be too strained, or at least remain intact on the surface. It would have been ideal if Qiao Xian had a reputable family supporting her, or at least the appearance of it. He didn't look down on her, and he had no intention of playing any tricks on her. However, he couldn't guarantee that others wouldn't try to undermine her. He didn't want anyone to belittle her or plot against her. When Qiao Xian informed him and her family about the unsavory matters, she should have realized that she needed to be cautious. If he were to become an officer in the future, would there be those who would conspire against her, knowing she lacked a strong family background? Perhaps he was being overly cautious, but it was better to be prepared for any potential challenges. Shao Yunduan had not anticipated the selfishness of the Qiao family. They did not deserve the support of Qiao Xian's family. Father-in-law, it's getting late. We should head home, Shao Yunduan suggested, showing his lack of interest in prolonging their stay. Officer Qiao had intended to share more thoughts with Qiao Xian, but upon noticing Shao Yunduan's slightly impatient expression, he decided against it and allowed them to leave. Qiao Wei pursed her lips and muttered, Mom, I don't think second sister is willing to help us. She must hate us, which is why she won't lend a hand. Madame Qiao smiled reassuringly. Oh no, that's not true. She is your father's daughter and will always stand by his side. Daughters would never harbor hatred towards their fathers, right? Officer Qiao shot an irritated glance at Qiao Wei. Your mother is correct. Your sister isn't as narrow-minded as you think. Even if she were, she should never hate her parents. What are you even suggesting? Madame Qiao smiled. Don't blame Wei. She's just being concerned. Officer Qiao snorted but didn't say anything further. Soon, mid-autumn day arrived and the harvest season was approaching. The first section of the Shao family owned only a few fields, so they hired workers to help with the reaping, alleviating the burden on the family. However, the fields in Zhang village required more attention. There was also a pond that yielded fruits. Qiao Xian harvested some lotus roots and water chestnuts to bring home. The water chestnuts were steamed directly in a steamer. Once cooked, the black and hard shells were peeled off, revealing the snow-white flesh of the water chestnuts. They had a tender and chewy texture, with a fresh and sweet taste unique to aquatic plants. The lotus roots were cut into chunks and stewed with pig's trotters and peanuts. The resulting soup was rich and flavorful, while the lotus roots themselves were fresh and sweet. Additionally, they made hot and sour lotus root sticks. The soy-colored sauce clung to the finger-sized lotus root sticks, which were stir-fried with garlic cloves, green peppers and red sour peppers. The dish offered a delightful combination of crispiness, spiciness and tanginess. The whole family enjoyed a satisfying and delicious meal. The abundance of lotus roots allowed the family to enjoy various dishes for months to come. They could prepare cold lotus root slices, hot and sour diced lotus root, stir-fried lotus root slices, deep-fried lotus root chips, steamed lotus root meat pie, lotus root meatballs, lotus root rib stewed soup, osmanthus glutinous rice with lotus roots and more. The versatility of lotus roots provided endless culinary possibilities. In addition to the lotus roots, the betel nut taro that Qiao Xian brought back from the province was also ready for harvest. Each betel nut taro weighed around 3 to 5 to 4 kilograms and exhibited numerous purple spots on its surface, creating a beautiful appearance once the peel was removed. Chapter 769. Not Madame Qiao. The alluring consistency and appearance of the betel nut taro made it a tempting addition to their meals. Inspired by its delicious taste, Qiao Xian decided to cultivate more taro plants to create high-quality taro balls, a delicacy they could enjoy in the future. As September arrived, Qiao Xian began sorting through the items they would bring to the province. They had nearly 100 kilograms of snow fungus and 800 lipsticks, which they intended to take along. Additionally, they planned to bring a variety of harvested goods for First Madam. Among these items were the lotus roots they had, but they also included a selection of taros. They would also bring Gastrodia alata, heterophylla, and figs. Other fruits such as ripe dragon fruits, pineapples, bananas, papayas, tangerines and sugarcanes would also be included. While the quantity of these fruits was not substantial, their freshness and vibrant flavors added a sense of confidence to Qiao Xian. The fruits from the southern region thrived remarkably, particularly the dragon fruits and papayas, enhancing the array of offerings they would present to First Madam. In addition to the fruits mentioned earlier, Qiao Xian had plans to grow lychees, longans and mangoes as long as everything went well after the cold winter. The fruit trees had grown thick, their trunks as wide as her arms, demonstrating their robust and healthy condition. They promised a bountiful harvest in the coming year. With all preparations in order, Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan, accompanied by Nis. Feng, elder uncle Yang Xiaoni, Shao Sanlang, Qi Taotao, Shao Junyan and Shao Qing, embarked on their journey to the province for a delightful time. Eldest uncle initially hesitated to join, but Miss Feng insisted on his presence. It was necessary to have someone remain in the village for the sake of the family's security and stability. Shao Dalong and Miss Su chose to stay behind, attending to the care of their youngest son. The little boy was still too young to embark on a long trip. However, Miss Su held hope in her heart, believing that there would be future opportunities for them to travel there. Qiao Xian entrusted the care of Miss Su to Li Xia and Li Qiao, while Chunyu and Chunfeng accompanied the group on their journey. Due to the construction of the school, the first section of the Shao family had gained recognition in the village, which provided reassurance to Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan to leave only Miss Su and Shao Dalong at home. With the support of the land officer and elderly men, anyone causing trouble to the family would not be tolerated. They had hired 3 wagons for the trip. One wagon was designated for carrying goods and presents, while the other 2 served as transportation for the travelers. They set off from the county early on the 5th of September. Qiao Xian deliberately did not inform Madame Qiao about their departure, nor did she allow her to join them on the journey. Qiao Xian was determined to keep them out of their affairs and prevent them from exerting any influence or control over their plans. The Qiao family remained unaware that Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan had already traveled to the province for their own shopping trip. Meanwhile, Madame Qiao was still in discussions with County Magistrate Qiao about their planned visit to the Yuezheng family on the 8th of September, intending to leave on the 7th. Madame Qiao believed that if they could spend the festival together, it would strengthen their relationship with the Yuezheng family. Officer Qiao supported this idea wholeheartedly. On the 6th day, Madame Qiao sent Auntie Ling to fetch Qiao Xian from Shaoding village to bring her back to the mansion, so they could travel together the following morning. However, to her surprise, Auntie Ling returned alone. Auntie Ling informed Madame Qiao that the Qiao family had already departed for the province the previous day. Madame Qiao couldn't believe what she was hearing. What are you saying? How dare she? Qiao Wei sneered and suggested. Al knew that girl was just pretending. Mom, let's inform father about this so that he can reprimand her. Chapter 770, How dare? Madame Qiao's expression darkened. Auntie Ling, speak clearly and tell me everything. She needed to inform old master about this situation and understand what was truly happening. Auntie Ling continued, when I arrived at the house, only Shao Dalong and his wife were present. I asked them about second Miss going to the province, but Miss Su claimed she had no knowledge of it. She mentioned that she was occupied with taking care of the children and had no idea about second Miss plans. In fact, she suggested that I ask second Miss directly. Madame Qiao realized that this was part of the plan Xiao Xian had discussed with Miss Su. No matter who from the Qiao family came asking, Miss Su was instructed to respond with "L don't know," and nothing more. Miss Su also had reservations about engaging with Auntie Ling, concerned that she might be drawn into something. Therefore, she followed Xiao Xian's instructions and consistently maintained that she had no information. Miss Su used the excuse of being busy at home to deflect Auntie Ling's probing and ultimately dismissed her. Auntie Ling, seething with anger, couldn't believe that she had been dismissed by a rural woman. However, she reminded herself that Miss Su was in fact her younger sister-in-law, and as an elder she shouldn't pry too much into her affairs. Reluctantly, Auntie Ling made her way back home. Madame Qiao was equally frustrated. Xiao Xian must have deliberately done this. Qiao Wei chimed in with a sneer, of course. Mom, she puts on a facade of kindness in front of father, but deep down she's not on our side. She still holds a grudge against us. Otherwise, she wouldn't have kept those precious ornaments a secret from us. Qiao Wei couldn't help but feel envious, especially when she thought about the luxurious bracelets adorning Xiao Xian's wrists. She had never seen such extravagant jewelry before, and she couldn't help but wonder how Xiao Xian had obtained them. Madame Qiao sneered in agreement and promptly ordered Auntie Ling to bring County Magistrate Qiao to her room. She needed to discuss this matter with him and find out the truth. County Magistrate Qiao, initially assuming that Madame Qiao had brought up the matter to deliver some greetings from Xiao Xian, was taken aback by her angry outburst. He asked in a cold tone, "Is there a misunderstanding between?" Madame Qiao let out a sigh and replied, "Old master, Auntie Ling personally went to Shaoding village. There's no room for misunderstanding. It seems that Xian still holds a grudge against us." County Magistrate Qiao's expression darkened further. After a brief pause he said, "Perhaps, but no. The first section of the family went to the province together, right?" "Yes. That explains it." County Magistrate Qiao suddenly felt a sense of relief. The Shao family went as a large group, so it might have been inconvenient for them to travel together. It's nothing to worry about. You can stick to the original plan and travel as scheduled tomorrow. You can contact them once you arrive. Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei were left stunned by County Magistrate Qiao's response. Qiao Wei screamed, "Dad, Xiao Xian doesn't think you and Mom are important. She doesn't like us and you are still defending her." "Shut up. What do you know anything?" County Magistrate Qiao shouted. "Don't suspect your sister. She is kind and she doesn't want to cause anyone trouble. She is apparently trying to save us trouble and you are not only ungrateful, but also lecturing at me? Wei, you have to improve your personality." Qiao Wei. Old master is right. Wei, no more talks." Chapter 771. County Magistrate's Self-Respect. Madame Qiao drove away Qiao Wei and she smiled. "You're right, old master. It would be foolish for Xiao Xian to stay with the Yuezheng family. It would only bring disrespect and disdain upon us." County Magistrate Qiao was startled and he could no longer keep the composure. Xiao Xian and Shao Yunduan passed by the county but did not even greet them, though they did not want to cause them trouble. They did not even inform them where and how to reach each other in the province. If Xiao Xian went into the Yuezheng family with her whole family, she was just being so rude and she would be disliked. The Yuezheng family would mock them and hate them. First Madam would not like her anymore. How ridiculous. County Magistrate Qiao, however, still tried to self-console. Xian and her husband are still too young to understand what they should do. They may have forgotten to tell us. I think her husband should have the basic rules about how to socialize with each other. They should not just go to the Yuezheng family like this. Go and meet them when you are in province together. If Xiao Xian and Shao Yunduan were in a good relationship with them, Madame Qiao should have all the reason to visit the Yuezheng family, since she was the lineal mother of the family. Madame Qiao sneered. She had lost interest in the county magistrate's words. He just wanted to save his own face and made himself convinced. Just wait and see. She wondered what made Qiao and Shao Yunduan so precious that her husband defended them all the time. Qiao Wei felt even worse as her frustration grew. She couldn't help but vent her frustrations to her mother. Mom, is Dad out of his mind? Qiao, that wretched woman, is playing games with us and yet Dad still defends her? What on earth has she done to him? Madame Qiao sneered in response and turned to Qiao Wei. Wei, I have found a suitable suitor for you. You need to work hard and secure a promising future for your husband so that you can completely overshadow Qiao. Qiao Wei remained puzzled by her father's actions, but Madame Qiao seemed to have a better understanding of the situation. It became clear to Madame Qiao that her husband's favorable treatment towards Qiao stemmed from his belief in Shao Yunduan's potential for a prosperous future. However, such predictions were never certain. The next morning, Madame Qiao, accompanied by Qiao Wei, Qiao Ko, and concubine Du, embarked on their journey to the province. Madame Qiao always made sure to bring Qiao Ko whenever matters concerning Qiao were involved. When neither Qiao Wei nor Madame Qiao held a proper position, it was Qiao Ko who would be forced to step forward and take charge. As for concubine Du, Madame Qiao had no intention of leaving her alone with County Magistrate Qiao. Concubine Du understood Madame Qiao's motives, and her resentment towards the situation only deepened. Qiao Ko was filled with excitement when she received the invitation to travel to the province. Upon their arrival in the evening, they settled into a nearby hostel. Madame Qiao purposely selected a hostel that was in close proximity to the Yuezheng family. Meanwhile, Qiao and her family had already moved into the mansion located in the alley. The mansion had always been well maintained by the Yuezheng family, and upon learning of their arrival, thorough cleaning had been done to ensure a fresh and welcoming atmosphere. The entire family was in awe of the magnificent mansion. Wow, this is our house. Oh my God, this is the province we've been talking about. Chapter 772. Treatment. Fifth brother and fifth sister-in-law are so incapable. I would never have gotten such a huge house in the province. Qiao Wei exclaimed. Qiao smiled and replied, it's all thanks to the support and opportunities given by the Yuezheng family. We are truly fortunate. This is such a great place. We will stay here for a few days and learn about the world. Madame Qiao added with excitement. The family chit-chat and explored their surroundings, growing more fascinated by the minute. Shao Junyan and Shao Qing, initially reserved, gradually loosened up and began to have fun in the garden, watching the fish in the pond from the railing. Shao Sanlang and Yang Xiaoni were equally amazed and delighted by the mansion. In the evening, Shao Yunduan arranged for a table of dishes to be delivered from a nearby restaurant. The whole family enjoyed a delicious meal together, engaging in lively conversation about their plans for sightseeing and entertainment. The atmosphere was joyful and animated. Upon their arrival, Qiao wasted no time and immediately sent a letter to First Madam to inform her of their presence in the province. The following morning, Qiao took the girls of the family and visited First Madam. First Madam was overjoyed to see them all. She warmly welcomed them and made sure they felt comfortable. During the visit, First Madam arranged for the girls to meet Madame Yuezheng. They exchanged pleasantries and had a pleasant conversation before returning to their respective residences. In the past, First Madam had refrained from introducing Qiao to Madame Yuezheng, considering the scandal involving Ms. Mi Jr. and her daughter. Madame Yuezheng had declined Qiao's visit at that time, but circumstances had changed. With Shao Yunduan's status as a provincial champion, Madame Yuezheng had to receive his mother and wife with respect. Therefore, Madame Yuezheng not only treated them with politeness but also prepared valuable gifts for the children. Even Ms. Mi Jr. dared not mock Ms. Fang in this new situation. Unaware of Ms. Mi Jr. and Madame Yuezheng's previous attitudes towards Qiao, Ms. Fang believed that their friendly behavior was genuine. She praised the Yuezheng family for their impeccable manners, in stark contrast to the Zhao family. Deep in thought, Qiao pondered the ancient belief that education and social status were highly valued. Having knowledge and a respectable name allowed one to escape being treated as low class in society. Many people, driven by the benefits of achieving a higher rank, dedicated themselves to studying and obtaining such positions. Upon returning to First Madam's residence, First Madam greeted them with a warm smile. Miss Fang, nieces and nephews, please make yourselves at home. Don't feel restrained. I want you to know that I truly cherish Xian. I have always regarded her as my own daughter. Let's strive to foster a harmonious relationship and be at ease with one another. Everyone felt at ease and smiled, relieved by the welcoming atmosphere. First Madam's straightforward personality resonated well with Miss Fang, who was known for her open-mindedness. They engaged in pleasant and cheerful conversations, creating a more relaxed atmosphere compared to their time at Madame Yuezheng's residence. Qiao Xian and her family stayed for lunch before bidding farewell to First Madame. However, First Madame extended an invitation for them to spend the upcoming double ninth day together. She mentioned arranging wagons for them to enjoy a half-day trip in the mountains. Delighted, Miss Fang smiled and accepted the invitation. Upon returning to their own house, First Madame sent a few individuals to deliver food and essential items. She reassured them that they could always seek assistance from her, emphasizing that it was preferable to obtain supplies from them rather than purchasing them in the market. Grateful for the kind gesture, Miss Fang expressed her appreciation and accepted the offer. In the afternoon, Yuezheng Shao eagerly joined in the task of unpacking and organizing, excitedly handling the snow fungus, lipsticks, and dried cassavas. Chapter 773. Promising future. Qiao Xian had a substantial amount of cassava powder, weighing 5 kilograms, along with sun-dried cassavas. Yuezheng Shao was impressed by the quantity and planned to send his men to fetch the remaining cassavas. In addition to the cassavas, Qiao Xian also presented taro balls and bubbles to the family. Although they had enjoyed these treats extensively at home, it was Yuezheng Shao's first time trying them. Qiao Xian even suggested sending some to First Madame and Madame Yuezheng. The combination of taro balls, bubbles, sugar water, and a portion of milk created a delightful and chewy dessert, which would surely become a favorite among the general population. Yuezheng Shao was delighted with the discovery. Not only did it provide a source of income, but it also offered him a delicious food option. Furthermore, the family was intrigued by the exotic fruits from the south. Dragon fruits and pineapples, sourced from Qiao Xian's home, piqued their interest. Madame Yuezheng particularly enjoyed bananas and dragon fruits, while the rest of the family appreciated all the fruits on offer. Yuezheng Shao was amazed by Qiao Xian and her family's ability to successfully grow fruits. Without any hesitation, he promptly assigned a few people to search for dragon fruit, papaya, sugarcane, banana, and pineapple seedlings as per Qiao Xian's request. Dragon fruits and papayas were particularly favorable as they could be planted and grown at any time. If these fruits flourished, it would expand the variety of desserts available. They might even be able to reduce their dependence on selling southern fruits by half. The future looked promising. On the day Madame Qiao and her family arrived in the province, Qiao Xian, Shao Yunduan, Miss Fang, and Yang Xiaoni spent the entire day shopping. While Miss Fang was not one to splurge, Shao Sanlang and Yang Xiaoni couldn't resist indulging themselves when they came across a wide array of delicious foods. Miss Fang felt a pang of concern seeing the expenses, but she reasoned that since they wouldn't visit the province often and the couple was using their own money, she didn't intervene to stop them from splurging. Both Miss Fang and eldest uncle were in awe of the bustling city, and spending an extra day there left them thoroughly satisfied with the experience. The excitement continued once they returned to their accommodation. For the next 2 days, Shao Yunduan and Qiao Xian planned to explore the province with their family and celebrate the double ninth day with the Yuezheng family. Afterward, Shao Yunduan had some literary gatherings lined up where he would visit esteemed masters alongside Xie Jingrong. Shao Yunduan hadn't had the opportunity to engage in practical discussions with his fellow peers since becoming the provincial champion. Meanwhile, Qiao Xian decided to inspect the land she had recently purchased. With the autumn harvest completed, there was an abundance of available laborers. Qiao Xian made the decision to hire them to begin sorting out the 1,000 mu of land. Although they would have to wait until spring to cultivate bananas, sugarcane, and pineapples, they could start planting papayas, dragon fruits, tangerines, and pomelos right away. In addition to these new crops, Qiao Xian also transferred some lemon and fig trees from the village garden. While the winter temperatures in the region wouldn't drop below 5 degrees Celsius, except for the mountain peaks, there was still a possibility of frost, although snowfall was typically minimal. Before there happened one huge frost storm, and the fruits and crops were all damaged when that happened. But this case wasn't frequent. So Qiao Xian decided to see if those fruits could still grow well after winter here, with her superpower as the protecting means. Chapter 774. Fighting forward. As long as the plants managed to survive the winter this year, the following year wouldn't pose a problem either. Rather than relying solely on supernatural powers, she sought assistance from Yuezheng Shao to gather a significant amount of straw. This way, when the temperature dropped, she could cover the tree roots with straw to keep them warm. Additionally, she planned to create smoke in the vicinity to protect the fruit trees from frost damage. Qiao Xian had meticulously prepared for this situation. A day prior to the double ninth day, when Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan were exploring the city with their families, the First Madam received a letter from Madame Qiao. In the letter, Madame Qiao acknowledged herself as Qiao Xian's mother and expressed gratitude to the First Madam for taking care of him. The First Madam couldn't help but chuckle. Madame Qiao is quite an interesting character. Auntie Hua found this revelation equally surprising. She smiled and remarked, "I'll wonder if she's aware that Mrs. Shao and her entire family are already present in the province." The First Madam entered a contemplative state. Qiao Xian had never mentioned anything about Madame Qiao's visit, and the First Madam had displayed no interest in meeting her. The Yuezheng family held considerable influence and had no need to associate with a county magistrate. Madame Yuezheng, as the esteemed guest of a high-ranking official's wife, surpassed Madame Qiao in every aspect. The First Madam had the choice to either receive her visit or decline it. "Auntie, would you mind visiting Xian and inquiring about her thoughts on the matter?" Essentially, this meant that if Qiao Xian desired any form of retribution, the First Madam would support her. Auntie Hua replied and personally went to speak with Qiao Xian. Qiao Xian smiled and said, "I forgot to inform Auntie about this. My lineal mother did suggest that I visit Auntie together with her, but I chose not to and ignored her request. I never expected them to arrive so quickly. Thank you for your concern, Auntie. It holds no significance for us. If Auntie wishes to meet them, she may do so. If she prefers not to, that's perfectly fine as well. I know what I need to do." Qiao Xian had already thought about what to say to Madame Qiao when she inquired why they weren't traveling together. Her intention was to demonstrate to Officer Qiao that they were not mere puppets controlled by his strings, obligated to obey his every command. If Officer Qiao couldn't tolerate it, Qiao Xian secretly wished for a confrontation. If Officer Qiao could endure it, then she would have to put in even more effort to strengthen their relationship. Auntie Hua understood Qiao Xian's point. She nodded and asked, "What will you say if she asks whether you're here?" "Auntie, you can tell her whatever she wants to hear. Just make sure not to disclose our whereabouts or reveal our business dealings with young Master Yuezheng," Qiao Xian instructed Auntie Hua. Auntie Hua comprehended the situation and nodded before taking her leave. In the guest house, Madame Qiao had mixed feelings upon hearing the response. The First Madam provided a diplomatic answer, stating that they were occupied with numerous engagements on the double 9th day and proposed visiting Madame Qiao the following day. This effectively prevented them from spending the day with the Yuezheng family. Furthermore, while Madame Qiao mentioned Qiao Xian, the First Madam made no mention of her in the reply, which surprised Madame Qiao. Qiao Wei found this unsurprising and sneered, "That girl must be lying. If she truly had a good relationship with the First Madam, why wouldn't the First Madam mention her?" The First Madam would have answered this question by stating that they never inquired about Qiao Xian in the first place. Chapter 775. Visiting Madame Qiao, having received a response that only expressed gratitude for taking care of Qiao Xian and nothing more, refrained from adding any additional information herself. Madame Qiao pondered aloud, "But if she's lying, where did she acquire the funds for such expensive jewelry?" Qiao Wei was at a loss for words. They had never possessed anything valuable like those ornaments, yet they could discern that none of them were counterfeit. "We'll find out when we meet the First Madam. Unfortunately, we won't be able to spend the festival with the Yuezheng family." However, Qiao Wei found solace in the thought that Qiao Xian must be in a similar situation to theirs. Their objective had been to spend the day with the Yuezheng family in order to forge a closer bond. Regrettably, that goal remained unfulfilled, leaving them feeling greatly disappointed. On the day of the Double Ninth Festival, the First Madam and Yuezheng Shao extended an invitation to the first section of the Shao family to join them on a wagon ride outside the city. Jean had made all the arrangements in the abbey early in the morning. Surrounded by mountains and rivers, the abbey had been adorned with an abundance of specially cultivated chrysanthemums. Outside the abbey, wild chrysanthemums in various shades of light purple, yellow, and white blanketed the mountains and plains, creating a stunning and captivating sight in this autumn season. Yuezheng Shao took Shao Yunduan and his father for a tour outside, while the First Madam accompanied Ms. Fang, Qiao Xian, and the other girls on a mountain excursion. While mountains were a common sight in the countryside, the view here at the abbey was distinct and carefully chosen by the Yuezheng family. The mountain path had been well maintained, with numerous flowers and trees planted for people to admire. Along the way, several pavilions provided resting spots. The highest pavilion on the mountain was spacious, where guests were served fruit snacks, cooked tea, and enjoyed their beverages. When viewed from a distance, the scene was truly magnificent. The entire day passed joyfully, leaving everyone in high spirits. The First Madam decided to escort them directly back home, and they all agreed to spend the night together. The Yuezheng family also had their own reunion on this day. When the first Madam, Old Master, and Yuezheng Shao insisted that they join, Miss Fang and her family couldn't refuse. The Old Master and the First Madam were deeply grateful to Qiao Xian for saving their lives, and with the two families engaged in business together, it was only fitting that they gathered for a festive dinner. As the head of the family, the First Madam intended to address any misbehavior from the second section of the family during this special occasion. And Me Jr. wasn't foolish enough to cause trouble. She may not have been thrilled about the gathering, but she knew when to act accordingly. Madame Yuezheng accepted the proposal, considering it was suggested by the first section of the family. Furthermore, Shao Yunduan held the title of provincial champion and maintained a good relationship with young Master Xie. Thus, it was advantageous for them to establish friendly ties with the Shao family. Ms. Mi Jr. didn't dare to cause trouble, but she and her daughter were eager to witness an entertaining spectacle. They believed that Shao Yunduan's title wouldn't make any significant difference. After all, they considered themselves a simple rural family with limited knowledge and experience. Such grand feasts and extravagant gatherings were completely foreign to them. They were certain to become the subject of ridicule and mockery. However, what Ms. Mi Jr. and her daughter were unaware of was that Qiao Xian possessed exceptional cooking skills and was well versed in a wide variety of dishes. She had never been hesitant to share her culinary creations with her family, who had enjoyed a diverse range of delicacies. While the county may have had limited ingredients, the province offered a wide selection. Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan always made sure to bring an abundance of ingredients back home during their visits. Chapter 776. Practical as the sumptuous and expensive dishes were served on the table, they were indeed delicious, but not to the extent that the entire Shao family abandoned their manners and devoured the food without restraint. Contrarily, Miss Fang had never been an arrogant individual, and she had instilled good values in her children. Prior to their visit to the province, Miss Fang had anticipated their trip to the Yuezheng family and had asked Qiao Xian to educate the family on proper etiquette in an affluent household. They were determined to learn and avoid any embarrassing situations. Although Qiao Xian's knowledge was limited, having attended numerous banquets with the First Madam, she had acquired some understanding along the way. Thus, she imparted this knowledge to her family accordingly. Now, everything was put into practice. No one exhibited any misbehavior. Even Madame Yuezheng was pleasantly surprised. She had mentally prepared herself for any potential faux pas from this rural family. But such concerns were unnecessary. Even Madame Yuezheng couldn't help but admire the Shao family, recognizing that they were genuinely kind-hearted and pleasant people. The first section of the family had truly made wise choices in their friendships. The dinner proceeded exceptionally well, with both guests and hosts thoroughly enjoying themselves. The atmosphere was lively and joyous. In the evening, the First Madam insisted that Yuezheng Shao accompany the Shao family back home. Ms. Fang initially intended to decline the offer, but the First Madam insisted, saying, "You are our guests, and that's how we treat our guests. Please don't be formal, Sister Fang." Ms. Fang expressed her gratitude and accepted the kind gesture. The following day, the First Madam even dispatched some of her staff to deliver 2 jars of wine, a basket of live crabs, and 2 baskets filled with fresh grapes and pomegranates to the Shao family for their enjoyment. Ms. Fang expressed her sincere gratitude, continuously praising Qiao Xian for befriending such wonderful individuals. Through this connection, she successfully established a friendship with the First Madam and the kind-hearted Yuezheng family. During this time, Xie Jingrong and Yuezheng Shao paid a visit to the Shao family. With old friends gathered together, the gathering was filled with warmth and happiness. Qiao Xian, Tao Tao, and Yang Xiaoni decided to purchase additional ingredients from the nearby market and invited Xie Jingrong and Yuezheng Shao to stay for lunch. They skillfully steamed the crabs and prepared various other delectable dishes. Madame Qiao couldn't contain her excitement and eagerly took Qiao Ko and Qiao Wei to visit the Yuezheng family. Concubine Du, on the other hand, was asked to remain at the hostel. Although Concubine Du complained silently within her heart, she dared not voice her grievances or challenge Madame Qiao's decision. She knew better than to oppose Madame Qiao. Meanwhile, the First Madam treated everyone with kindness and grace, not finding fault with anyone but displaying her impeccable manners. But First Madam had no intention of introducing them to Madame Yuezheng. While the First Madam treated them as guests, her hospitality was not entirely sincere. However, in the eyes of Madame Qiao and her 2 daughters, they were overwhelmed with excitement, feeling that the First Madam was showing them great warmth and affection. Unaware of their empty flattery, the First Madam grew increasingly impatient. She was on the verge of instructing Auntie Hua to find an excuse to politely decline their request when Madame Qiao suddenly inquired about Qiao Xian. Xian mentioned that she arrived in the province before us. She expressed her desire to pay her respects to you. Has she been here? First Madame smiled and nodded. Yes, Xian and Sister Fang have already been here. In fact, I invited them to join us for a tour outside the city, and we even shared a celebratory dinner together yesterday in honor of the Double Ninth Festival. Chapter 777, Visiting what? You invited them to spend the day together? The three women's expressions instantly changed. Qiao Wei reacted the most fiercely, her anger bursting forth without any hesitation. First Madame observed their reactions and sneered inwardly, perplexed by their distress. Why did they care so much about her treating Qiao Xian kindly? Why were they reacting so miserably, especially Elder Miss Qiao? She appeared as though she had been struck. First Madame couldn't comprehend it at all. It was true that the entire family disliked Qiao Xian and had never treated her well. But she had openly invited Qiao Xian and her family to visit, with no intention of hiding her actions. She smiled and explained, I have always held great admiration for Xian, and I genuinely like her. Her husband and my son have established a good relationship, so when they came for a visit, I invited them to join us for dinner to celebrate and enjoy each other's company. Qiao Ko found satisfaction in Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei's displeasure. However, upon hearing First Madame speak so highly of Qiao Xian, she also felt annoyed. She smiled and inquired, so, the second sister was here? Where are they staying? My sisters and I have missed her terribly. Madame Qiao forced a smile and requested, please do tell us. She felt extremely irritated. However, she couldn't blame First Madame for inviting Qiao Xian and her in-laws to dinner while excluding them. Madame Qiao wasn't in a position to voice her displeasure, nor did she dare to do so. Before First Madame could respond, Qiao Wei interjected. The second sister is always so selfish. She only cares about herself and not others. We discussed coming to the province together, but she arrived first without informing us. We don't even know where to find her. First Madame's expression faltered upon hearing Qiao Wei's words. She forced a fake smile and remarked, I'll admire her strong-willed personality. She's a remarkable young woman, and I appreciate her assertiveness. Elder Miss Qiao, perhaps you have misunderstood her? Madame Qiao, quick to defend her daughters, interrupted Qiao Wei saying, they are close sisters and have always been carefree with each other. That's what Qiao Wei meant. First Madame smiled and nodded, saying, of course. Auntie Hua finally found an excuse and said, First Madame, the housekeepers from the Southern Abbey are here waiting to see you. They have an urgent matter and need your attention before they leave, so... First Madame gave a regretful smile to Madame Qiao and said, I'll apologize, but I must attend to this matter. Perhaps we can continue our conversation next time, Madame Qiao? Madame Qiao, accustomed to being treated with respect and courtesy due to her association with County Magistrate Qiao, felt a surge of irritation. It had been years since she had been dismissed as a guest. Maintaining the family's reputation was crucial in business circles. Feeling her frustration mounting, she couldn't bear it any longer. She stood up, forced a smile and bid farewell. Very well then. Goodbye. Goodbye. First Madame also rose from her seat and saw them off with a smile. Maids quickly stepped forward and escorted them out of the premises. Chapter 778. Feeling sorry, Qiao Wei and Qiao Ko felt a mix of disappointment and annoyance. They had expected First Madame to be generous and offer them presents as well. After all, she had showered Qiao Xian with precious gifts. Why were they being treated so differently? They couldn't help but wonder why the Yuezheng family didn't even bother to offer any presents during their first meeting. It seemed unfair and left them feeling overlooked. Unbeknownst to them, First Madame had indeed prepared some gifts. However, upon hearing Qiao Wei speak ill of Qiao Xian and Qiao Ko constantly indicating their annoyance towards her, First Madame's initial goodwill wavered. She was a perceptive person and understood that maintaining superficial connections was unnecessary. Ultimately, she decided not to present them with any gifts. It was a subtle way of expressing her dissatisfaction and protecting Qiao Xian from unfair treatment. Madame Qiao, on the other hand, grew increasingly irritated by her encounter with First Madame. She couldn't fathom what was wrong with the Yuezheng family. She was about to return to the capital with her husband, and she had no intention of cultivating any further relationship with them. Perhaps their family's business in the north wasn't doing as well as she had presumed. Madame Qiao couldn't comprehend the arrogance displayed by the Yuezheng family in treating an officer's wife so poorly. In her eyes, they were nothing more than a group of uncivilized and narrow-minded individuals lacking basic manners. While she acknowledged that there was little she could do about the Yuezheng family directly, she was determined to make Qiao Xian suffer. Madame Qiao refused to let Qiao Xian believe that her husband's newfound status made her invincible. As the girl's biological mother, Madame Qiao believed she had the authority to teach her a lesson, despite her marriage. As Madame Qiao and her daughters departed from First Madame's residence, a realization struck her. First Madame had failed to provide them with the information regarding Qiao Xian and her in-laws' whereabouts. However, it was not feasible for her to turn back and inquire at that moment. Madame Qiao reluctantly let go of the thought, feeling even more disgruntled. Just as she was leaving the mansion with her biological daughter and the concubine's daughter, they unexpectedly encountered Ms. Mi Jr. Ms. Mi Jr. initially didn't recognize Madame Qiao and her daughters, resulting in a frown on her face. However, the maid intervened and introduced both parties to each other. Upon learning that Ms. Mi Jr. was the second Madame Yuezheng, Madame Qiao felt a surge of motivation and greeted her, inadvertently revealing her status as Qiao Xian's biological mother. She wanted to make it clear that Qiao Xian would never escape the influence of the Qiao family. Mi Jr.'s eyes lit up and she greeted Madame Qiao with a smile. "Oh, Mrs. Shao's lineal mother, greetings. You are too kind, second Mrs. Yuezheng." Madame Qiao felt even more irritated seeing Ms. Mi Jr. greet her for Qiao Xian's sake. Madame Qiao couldn't help but wonder if that wretched girl had managed to gather so many allies. She knew that First Madame didn't wish to keep her around, and Ms. Mi Jr.'s husband had sons of his own. It was a well-known fact that biological mothers and the children of concubines were rarely on good terms. Thus, Ms. Mi Jr. saw an opportunity to cause trouble, leveraging her position as the second madam to spite Qiao Xian's lineal mother. "My elder sister-in-law must be too busy to receive you well. I am free. If you want, what about having tea with me? We can have some nice chats with each other too." Faced with Ms. Mi Jr.'s warm, open arms, Madame Qiao and the two daughters were so surprised and glad. They were never going to miss this open opportunity. Madame Qiao accepted the invitation directly. Therefore, the three women walked away with Ms. Mi Jr. But the maid who was supposed to lead them out could not do anything, but reported the situation to First Madame honestly. First Madame was very surprised. But she did not mind. Instead, she smiled briefly. "My sister-in-law is very hospitable. She was never up to any good." But that did not bother her. Chapter 779. Unfriendly visit. She was up to no good. But that did not bother her. Ms. Mi Jr.'s actions and desires were beyond First Madame's control, as she was an independent individual with her own motives. However, First Madame remained unconcerned about Ms. Mi Jr.'s tricks. Madame Qiao and her two daughters were warmly received by Ms. Mi Jr. and her family. They had pleasant conversations and Yuezheng, Ting, Qiao Ko and Qiao Wei quickly formed a friendship. It was a surprising turn of events for Madame Qiao and her daughters, leaving them highly satisfied when they departed in the afternoon. During their conversation they found common ground in their dislike for Qiao Xian, Shao Yunduan and the Shao family. Madame Qiao couldn't help but sneer as they left the Yuezheng family, instructing the coachman to take them to the alleyway. That damn girl had the audacity to buy a house in the province. Bah. On that particular day, Xie Jingrong and Yuezheng Shao paid a visit to Shao Yunduan. They spent half a day together and extended an invitation for a small gathering the next day before their departure. Madame Qiao and her daughters arrived immediately after Xie Jingrong and Yuezheng Shao had left. Qiao Xian and her family had been exploring the city and enjoying various activities, such as attending flower shows and hiking. They decided to have a well-deserved rest at home in the coming days. As a result, Qiao Xian, Ms. Fong, and the rest of the family were all present at home when Madame Qiao and her daughters arrived. The gate housekeepers were previously employed by First Madame. She had even transferred their contracts to Qiao Xian, so they now worked for her. They were responsible for taking care of the house in Qiao Xian's absence. Auntie Ling knocked forcefully on the door, and when the housekeeper opened it, he was greeted by Madame Qiao, her two daughters, two maids, and Auntie Ling. They all seemed to exude an air of intensity that made him feel slightly uneasy. The housekeeper was taken aback by the unexpected visitors. "Excuse me, who are you?" he asked, trying to regain his composure. Auntie Ling put on a strange smile. "Yes, this is the residence of the Shao family from Shaoding village. We have come to visit." The housekeeper nodded, still somewhat bewildered. "Very well. Madame Qiao is the lineal mother of your Mrs. Shao. Please inform her and ask her to come out and greet us," Auntie Ling instructed, her tone leaving no room for argument. The housekeeper hesitated for a moment. He was unaware of the relationship between Madame Qiao and Mrs. Shao. However, without questioning further, He allowed them to enter and promptly informed his wife to relay the news to Mrs. Shao. Madame Qjao observed the expansive yard with a mix of envy and annoyance, her resentment growing. She was determined to take out her frustrations on Qiao Xian. Upon hearing of their arrival, Qiao Xian greeted the news with a smile. I was just thinking about them. I didn't expect them to arrive so quickly. Miss Fang hesitated, concern evident on her face. Qiao Xian, they have come here so swiftly. What do you plan to do? This house has plenty of rooms. If you don't mind, we can accommodate them for the night. Qiao Xian understood her mother-in-law's worries, aware that accommodating Madame Qiao and her daughters could strain their already delicate relationship. Don't worry, Mom, Qiao Xian reassured her. There's no need for them to stay overnight. One promise they won't want to. That's good to hear, Miss Fang replied, relieved. She too had no desire for Madame Qiao and her daughters to spend the night in their home. Feeling reassured by Qiao Xian's words, Miss Fang smiled warmly. Will go and see what our guests want. Xiaoni Tao Tao Chunyu Chuanfen, let's all go and see them. Chapter 780. The Qiao family's business. She was determined to support her daughter-in-law, ready to confront any bullying from her lineal mother. With a sense of warmth in her heart, Qiao Xian smiled confidently. All right, let's go and see what they want. The group made their way to the front yard, where they were met with piercing gazes from Madame Qiao and her two daughters. Qiao Xian, how dare you buy a house behind our backs? Explain yourself. Madame Qiao's voice was filled with anger. Qiao Wei couldn't contain her frustration any longer and erupted in a furious shout. Explain yourself, Qiao Xian. Qiao Xian raised an eyebrow, feigning surprise. Explain? What for? Humph, you're speechless, aren't you? If it wasn't for second Mrs. Yuezheng, we wouldn't have found out about this. Qiao Wei's voice was filled with contempt. Miss Fang cleared her throat, displaying confusion. Madam-in-law, your daughter is speaking quite rudely. Why should we have to inform you about our house purchases? Qiao Wei. Madame Qiao was stuck in words. Indeed, the Shao family had every right to purchase the house without informing the Qiao family, as they didn't rely on them for financial support. The Qiao family's furious rush forward seemed unreasonable. Qiao Wei, determined to provoke a confrontation, sneered, We're all here together, so why pretend? Qiao Xian, did you pay for that house? Where did you get the money from? Qiao Xian did buy the house and possess the contract. However, Miss Fang had never asked her about it or sought to claim ownership for herself. Being an honest person, she appeared somewhat hesitant. Qiao Xian spoke up, Elder sister, you've never been to the Shao family, so how can you know their financial situation? The Shao family purchased the house. Young Master Yuezheng and my husband have been friends for a long time, so it's only natural for him to assist when my husband wanted to buy a house like this. Qiao Wei seethed with anger and exclaimed, Second Mrs. Yuezheng claimed that first Madam gave you this house. Qiao Xian responded calmly, Oh, she lied. Qiao Wei sneered, That's impossible. Why do you think so? If you want, you can bring second Mrs. Yuezheng and first Madam here, and we can all discuss this together. Qiao Wei glared at her fiercely. She knew she would never be able to bring second Mrs. Yuezheng or first Niadame here. Qiao Xian was deliberately making things difficult for her. It was all intentional. All right, Wei, Madame Qiao understood the situation clearly. They knew something fishy was going on, but they lacked proof to support their claims. Qiao Xian and Ms. Fang exchanged arguments, but they couldn't find any inconsistencies in each other's statements. Mrs. In-law, why don't you invite us inside for some tea? Ms. Fang stepped aside and said, Please come in. Madame Qiao glanced at Qiao Xian with a mix of disappointment and concern. Didn't you say we were traveling together? Why did you leave on your own? Your father and I missed you. Qiao Xian responded calmly, Mom and Dad, third brother, third sister-in-law Tao Tao and she were all eager to come here. I was so caught up in the excitement that I forgot to inform you. I apologize, Mother. I will talk to Father about this. He is understanding and am sure he won't hold it against me. Chapter 781. Cheap Deal. Madame Qiao. Madame Qiao's anger intensified. She had not expected Qiao Xian to be so adept at handling the situation. It only fueled her regret further. She wondered why she had allowed Qiao Xian to marry Shao Yunduan in the first place. Perhaps she should have sent her to become a nun instead. Qiao Wei couldn't bear Qiao Xian's deliberate arguments. You did this on purpose. What a pathetic excuse. Qiao Xian, you are truly wicked. Qiao Xian inwardly sighed, thinking, How can you be so foolish? Unsurprisingly, Miss Fang didn't take kindly to Qiao Wei's accusation. She retorted, Elder Miss Qiao, my daughter-in-law is telling the truth. We were all eager to explore the province, so we came together as a family. Yang Xiaoni chimed in, yes, we were all excited about this trip. My fifth sister-in-law is incredibly kind and patient, explaining everything to us because we are unfamiliar with the area. It's only natural that she got caught up and forgot to inform you. Can't you understand that? Tao Tao chimed in saying, we're not perfect, we can forget things. Yeah, stop nitpicking. You're right, everyone can forget things. Qiao Xian smiled warmly and contentedly, her eyes sparkling with joy. It was indeed a delightful day. Qiao Wei's face contorted in frustration. What was going on? How had Qiao Xian managed to win everyone over? Had she bought them off? Qiao Ko couldn't help but feel bitter and envious. It seemed like the women from the Shao family were all standing up for Qiao Xian and contradicting Qiao Wei. Qiao Xian was incredibly fortunate to have such supportive in-laws. In the end, it turned out that Qiao Xian was the one who had struck gold. Qiao Xian's popularity among the Shao family took Madame Qiao by surprise. She hadn't expected the women from the countryside to stand up for Qiao Xian and contradict her own daughter. Yet, she couldn't deny that Qiao Xian had carelessly fallen into their trap, leaving her with no excuses to defend her. Madame Qiao sighed inwardly, realizing that her daughter's impulsive behavior had put her in a difficult position. Trying to diffuse the tension, Madame Qiao forced a smile. Wei has always wanted to travel with Xian, and she was disappointed when it didn't happen. That's why she spoke rudely. Please, Mrs. In-law, don't be angry with her. Qiao Xian gracefully responded, it's all right, mother. My mother-in-law is understanding and forgiving. She won't hold any grudges against my sister. She explained herself to avoid any misunderstandings. Yang Xiaoni chimed in, yes, my mother-in-law is truly wonderful. She treats us with so much kindness. The two sister-in-laws exchanged a warm smile, appreciating each other's positive qualities. Yang Xiaoni, being down-to-earth and genuine, continued to speak highly of her mother-in-law, unaware of the underlying tension. However, Qiao Xian noticed Madame Qiao's subtle mockery of her mother-in-law and refused to let it slide. She wouldn't allow Madame Qiao to belittle her mother-in-law. Ms. Fang, feeling pleased and grateful, beamed and said, that's because you are so kind, so I treat you well in return. I'm not a mean person. Please come in and have a seat, Mrs. In-law. Madame Qiao tightly held Qiao Wei's hands, maintaining a smile as they took their seats. Chunyu then served the tea. As Madame Qiao sipped the tea, she suddenly realized that she had nothing more to say. How could she interrogate Qiao Xian about the house or her decision to leave without them? She was at a loss for words and unsure how to proceed. Chapter 782. Staying away. Madame Qiao was aware that First Madame held a dislike towards them, and she acknowledged First Madame's strong and independent nature, making it difficult to influence her. Qiao Xian's behavior didn't offer much support either, as her attitude seemed to align with First Madame's. Despite this, Madame Qiao felt fortunate to have made a connection with Second Mrs. Yuezheng. However, what Madame Qiao didn't realize was that Second Mrs. Yuezheng had no involvement in the family's business affairs. She lacked the capability to contribute or meddle in any significant way. Her only purpose seemed to be sowing discord among the family members, making her a rather futile contact. Nonetheless, Madame Qiao couldn't leave abruptly. After exchanging a few pleasantries, she decided to take her leave, requesting Qiao Xian to see them off. "Elle would like to have a word with you," Madame Qiao stated. "Of course, mother," Qiao Xian responded promptly, showing no hesitation. Ms. Fang and Yang Xiaoni exchanged worried glances as they observed the interaction between Madame Qiao and Qiao Xian. Qiao Xian reassured them with a smile and a slight shake of her head, indicating that she could handle the situation. Madame Qiao grew increasingly annoyed by this display. She felt a sense of frustration towards how the entire family seemed to perceive her. How could an in-law family behave in such a manner? Qiao Xian accompanied them outside. In the front yard, Madame Qiao cast a glance at the others, signaling her desire to speak with Qiao Xian privately. Qiao Wei wasn't particularly pleased, but after a momentary exchange of glances with Qiao Xian, she reluctantly complied. "Do you have something to say to me?" Qiao Xian asked with a smile. "You are the wife of the provincial champion, and your popularity is soaring. I don't dare to give you any orders." Madame Qiao remarked sarcastically. Qiao Xian maintained a pretense of ignorance towards the mockery, responding with a bashful smile, "I'm not that popular, but I'm happy. After all, my husband holds the title of provincial champion." Madame Qiao's expression softened slightly. Why had she attempted to mock Qiao Xian in the first place? She gazed at Qiao Xian intently and asked, "Qiao Xian, I can see through you now. Do you hate me and the old master?" Qiao Xian denied it, a serene expression on her face. That's not true. We can simply keep our distance from each other just as we have done in the past. Madame Qiao sneered, Shao Yunduan is still far from becoming an official. Are you already trying to push us away? Qiao Xian countered, haven't we always been distant from each other? What do you mean by pushing you away now? Madame Qiao felt a mix of shame and anger welling up within her. Indeed, their relationship had been virtually non-existent until Old Master sought to curry favor with Shao Yunduan, considering his promising future. You truly despise us. What do you think the Old Master will do when he learns of this? Madame Qiao questioned. Qiao Xian maintained her smile. As a married daughter, you have no power over me. Madame Qiao, focus on earning the trust of County Magistrate Qiao first. You. Madame Qiao's mind raced with one thought, I won't let her live in peace. I won't let Shao Yunduan succeed. Otherwise, this wretched girl will overshadow and trample over me. You were the one who made the lipsticks, weren't you? Madame Qiao suddenly inquired, recalling the information she had heard from Ms. Mi Jr. The popularity of the lipsticks was undeniable, and Madame Qiao was well aware of how challenging it was to obtain one. Qiao Xian, in her eyes, lacked the skill to create such exquisite products. However, Madame Qiao couldn't dismiss the possibility that Ms. Mi Jr. had spoken the truth. Qiao Xian had been deceiving her all along, hiding her true abilities. She lied. She lied so she could create those lipsticks, Madame Qiao realized. Qiao Xian met her gaze, a smile playing on her lips as she nodded. Yes, I did. Chapter 783. Trouble. Madame Qiao felt a surge of anger and frustration upon learning the extent of Qiao Xian's success. It was a substantial amount of money that Qiao Xian had made from the lipstick business. The popularity of the lipsticks had persisted for over a year in the province, and yet Madame Qiao and her old master had struggled immensely to gather enough funds for old master's position in the capital. If only she had known about Qiao Xian's financial success earlier, she wouldn't have endured so many sleepless nights or sold precious belongings. Qiao Xian, seemingly aware of Madame Qiao's vexation, added fuel to the fire with a mischievous smile. Actually, it's not entirely my doing. My sister-in-laws have been instrumental, and this wealth belongs to the Shao family. Madame Qiao forced a smile, understanding that Qiao Xian was purposefully provoking her. However, she was at a loss as to what she could do about the situation. Even though she now knew that Qiao Xian was the mastermind behind the profitable lipstick business, she was powerless to take action against her. Madame Qiao's mind was filled with determination. She refused to let go of the matter regarding the lipsticks. She planned to discuss it with the old master, seeking to acquire the instructions and secure a continuous source of wealth for their family. With the success of the lipstick business, both she and the old master would no longer have to face financial hardships. Furthermore, Madame Qiao had heard that the lipsticks had made their way to the capital and were receiving positive acclaim. If she could obtain the source of these lipsticks, she could establish connections with influential and noble individuals, potentially improving their social standing. For now, she would have to endure and bide her time. The Shao family is indeed remarkable. You're fortunate to have married into such a capable family, Madame Qiao remarked sarcastically. Qiao Xian maintained her composure and replied, Thank you for acknowledging their assistance, mother. I will always remember your kindness. Madame Qiao sneered in response. Make sure you do. She then took Qiao Wei and Qiao Ko with her, and Qiao Wei was on the verge of asking a question when she abruptly stopped. Mother, the Shao family is quite formidable. Shao Yunduan is just an ordinary recommended man. They think they have already reached great heights. Qiao Wei was seething with anger. Qiao Xian never mentioned this house to us. Is it so degrading to have a house like this? She didn't even invite us to stay. But I wouldn't want to stay with her either. And she doesn't say a word about it. Mother, she's humiliating you. Qiao Wei exclaimed. Her frustration evident. Madame Qiao's expression turned cold. Indeed, Qiao Xian was humiliating her. She was also humiliating the old master. They were both in trouble now. The old master was too foolish to realize that they were not hated. The couple was narrow-minded and sought revenge. Let it go. Don't waste your anger on such people. We now know everything about her, and I will have a serious conversation with your father, Madame Qiao stated firmly. And don't mention the lipsticks in front of her. Qiao Wei's eyes gleamed with curiosity. She asked indignantly, I almost forgot to ask her. Mother, did she really make those lipsticks? Madame Qiao nodded. Qiao Wei gasped, her disbelief evident on her face. Qiao Ko looked up, his expression filled with shock. I can't believe it. Qiao Wei exclaimed, struggling to accept the reality. How could she possibly create something as amazing as lipsticks? It's impossible. Madame Qiao's tone turned ominous as she responded, I thought the same. When did that wretched girl learn about this? But just look at her, always pretending, and we never knew what she was capable of. Qiao Wei was at a loss for words. Chapter 784. Invitation. Qiao Xian had undergone a remarkable transformation from her previous timid demeanor as the daughter of a concubine. Second Mrs. Yuezheng's words held a persuasive power that resonated with Qiao Wei. It became apparent that the favorable treatment Qiao Xian and the Shao family received from the Yuezheng family was not due to genuine friendship but driven by their pursuit of profits. The memory of the alluring lipsticks, particularly the limited editions she had glimpsed in a store a few days ago, filled Qiao Wei's mind, intensifying her desire to acquire them immediately. Mom, can't we get a few sets from her? Qiao Wei blurted out, referring to the woman in question. Qiao Ko, equally captivated by the allure of the lipsticks, contemplated for a moment and then smiled, saying, Mother, I also wish to have some. After all, our sister is the one who creates them. It seems only fair that she shares a few with us, wouldn't you agree? Madame Qiao responded, Let's not ask her right away. I have a plan. Qiao Wei's dissatisfaction was evident, but Qiao Ko, ever agreeable, smiled and expressed her agreement with their mother's decision. The Qiao family's absence from the doorstep brought a sense of relief to the Shao family. Qiao Xian shifted her focus towards purchasing 1,000 mu of land instead. With the assistance of the Yuezheng family, she smoothly carried out the development plan for the barren lands by enlisting people to conduct explorations. Qiao Xian once again approached Yuezheng Shao, requesting additional seeds of tangerines, pomelos, dragon fruits, and papayas from the southern region. The more seeds she could acquire, the better. She resolved to plant them as soon as possible, eager to see if her extraordinary abilities could help them survive the winter. If mangoes, lychees, and longans bore fruit next year, she intended to expand their cultivation further. Yuezheng Shao, displaying great generosity, responded by personally hiring reliable individuals from his own family company to procure the seeds. Ensuring the survival of the transported seedlings became their primary concern, though Qiao Xian and the others were confident it wouldn't pose significant difficulties. Qiao Xian held no worries about the transportation process. These seedlings were not delicate or fragile. They could withstand the journey without issue. Particularly the dragon fruits and papayas, which were known for their resilience. In addition to acquiring fruits from the southern region, Qiao Xian secured 30 mu of land for lemon trees and another 20 mu for figs. Once Qiao Xian finalized the plan, she no longer had to visit the fields daily since Yuezheng Shao's team took care of the necessary arrangements. However, Qiao Xian didn't completely delegate the responsibility. She continued to make regular visits to the fields. Sometimes she would bring along Tao Tao and Yang Xiaoni, allowing them to accompany her and learn more about the process, which would prove beneficial for their own knowledge. On a particular day, an unexpected invitation arrived from Yuezheng Ting, inviting Qiao Xian to a gathering. Qiao Xian was taken aback by the surprise invitation but ultimately accepted it wholeheartedly. Qiao Xian found herself without the company of Yang Xiaoni, Tao Tao, or Chunyu. However, she knew she had to protect herself even without their presence. Escorted by a female maid, Qiao Xian climbed into a wagon that would take them beyond the city's limits. Curiosity did not drive her to inquire about their destination. Eventually, they arrived at a mansion situated in an outskirts area. Qiao Xian spotted Yuezheng Ting engaged in conversation with Qiao Ko and Qiao Wei. While she hadn't anticipated this meeting, she wasn't surprised either. Madame Qiao had previously spoken with Ms. Mi Jr., and it was only natural for Qiao Ko and Qiao Wei to form a friendship. Qiao Xian understood the underlying dynamics. Mrs. Shao, how unexpected to have you respond to my invitation. What a delightful surprise. Yuezheng Ting sneered, her tone laced with mockery. Yuezheng Ting knew that she could never marry Xie Jingrong. Yet, she refused to be forced into a union with anyone else, especially when her mother persisted in finding a suitable suitor. Yuezheng Ting was determined to find a way to escape such arrangements. Chapter 785. Bold talk. Xie Jingrong held a special place in Yuezheng Ting's heart. He served as her standard when it came to seeking a potential suitor. When Yuezheng Ting faced obstacles that prevented her from reaching her goals, she often needed to direct her frustration towards someone else, as a means to convince herself that her own abilities were not at fault. Regrettably, Qiao Xian was the unfortunate target of this misplaced anger. Thank you, Lady Yuezheng. I could never refuse your gracious invitation. However, it would have been nice if you had informed me about my sisters. That would have brought me even more joy. Qiao Wei snorted dismissively, casting a cold gaze in her direction. This woman truly excelled at boastful remarks. Not a hint of embarrassment crossed her face. No wonder Mother had admitted to misjudging her character. Qiao Xian now understood why. Qiao Ko exchanged a glance with Qiao Xian, chuckling softly. It's never too late to learn about it now, sister. Qiao Xian responded, her tone laced with humor. Indeed. They'll simply consider it a grand surprise party in my honor. The three girls. A grand surprise party? Qiao Xian really knew how to make herself special, didn't she? Would like to visit Lingyuan Temple and see the flowers. Hi, don't we go together? Yuezheng Ting suggested, her tone betraying annoyance. Qiao Xian didn't refuse the proposal. Instead, she smiled and agreed. They boarded the wagon and set off towards Lingyuan Temple. The temple wasn't too far from the mansion, and they reached it within half an hour. Nestled amidst the mountains, the temple was surrounded by towering ancient trees. As they ascended the steps, the tranquility of the surroundings dispelled the remnants of summer's heat. Normally, climbing the mountain with close friends and family would be a delightful experience, creating a sense of contentment. However, with Yuezheng Ting, Qiao Ko, and Qiao Wei by her side, Qiao Xian had to remain cautious and curious. Qiao Xian had no idea of their true intentions for bringing her here, but she was certain that they had ulterior motives. With her superpower by her side, Qiao Xian felt no worry at all. Lady Yuezheng held considerable influence, and it seemed she had made prior arrangements, as the monks warmly received them and provided a serene courtyard for their rest. Qiao Ko and Qiao Wei rarely ventured out, as there were limited places for amusement in the county. Thus, they displayed great interest in the temple, which was renowned as one of the province's 3 great temples. As Yuezheng Ting had visited numerous times, she took great pride in showing them around and sharing information about its history. The landscape in the back mountain was breathtakingly beautiful. On this delightful autumn day, flowers adorned every corner. Yuezheng Ting guided them through the scenic areas, and they engaged in pleasant conversations as they strolled. The mountainous terrain was rugged, twisting, and uneven, far from flat. Yuezheng Ting and Qiao Wei exchanged a knowing glance before shifting their gaze to their maids. Li and Fendi approached Qiao Xian with deliberate slowness, before suddenly giving her a push and a shove. With a startled scream, Qiao Xian tumbled down the hill, rolling all the way until she landed amidst the shrubbery, her cries echoing in the air. Observing Qiao Xian lying motionless in the grass, the group assumed she had lost consciousness. Yuezheng Ting chuckled and sneered, Hal thought she was quite nimble. Turns out she's just a fragile little thing. Qiao Ko joined in the laughter, remarking, she brought this upon herself by being so confident and coming alone. That was a foolish decision on her part, added another girl. The trio erupted in laughter, relishing in the situation. Qiao Wei, wearing a satisfied expression, flattered Yuezheng Ting with a smile. You are truly clever, Sister Yuezheng. With her reputation ruined, she will never be able to recover. They eagerly anticipated whether Qiao Xian's provincial champion husband would still want her after such a downfall. Chapter 786. Not that easy. Yuezheng Ting joined in the laughter. Indeed. I despise her, and it's satisfying to see her in this state. Qiao Xian, the woman, had been married, but she continued to seduce Brother Xie and slander Qiao Xian in his presence, deliberately creating misunderstandings. Yuezheng Ting had no intention of allowing her to live a peaceful life. Glancing at the others, Yuezheng Ting reminded them, remember our plan? We cannot afford any mistakes if questioned. Qiao Wei and the others nodded in agreement. They had rehearsed their story beforehand. They would claim that they had traveled together, and Qiao Xian had insisted on reaching the flowers on the steep hill but had a mishap and fell. Initially they hadn't paid much attention, but their panic grew when they couldn't tend her. They had searched everywhere but failed, which led to them seeking help from the temple staff. The 3 girls exchanged sinister smirks. By presenting this narrative, when they eventually went to search for Qiao Xian, everything would have transpired as planned. Whatever happened to Qiao Xian would no longer be their concern. Qiao Xian had brought this upon herself by accepting their invitation despite having offended them. Not everyone was as gullible and feeble as she seemed. The 3 girls chatted and walked, their confidence and wickedness evident in their smiles. They decided to spend an hour in a secluded area before heading to the temple to enlist someone's assistance in searching for Qiao Xian. However, as they took a few steps, their feet became entangled in vines, causing them to trip and roll downhill into the shrub, huddled closely together. Qiao Xian, using her superpower, had been closely monitoring their every move and conversation since their arrival at Lingyuan Temple. She witnessed Yuezheng, Ting and Qiao Wei instructing the maids to push her. Being aware of their malicious intentions, she strategically positioned herself to roll down the hill at the exact moment of their push. Utilizing her powers, she had vines protect her during the descent. Thus, despite appearing disheveled and injured from the girl's perspective, she was completely unharmed. However, rolling downhill did result in some minor injuries, but they were inconsequential. Lying motionless, Xiao Xian employed her full superpower to capture their laughter and venomous words. She couldn't comprehend why girls raised in prominent families would exhibit such wickedness at such a young age. They delighted in tormenting others due to their wealth and influence, and today Xiao Xian would repay them for their actions. They would not be allowed to leave unscathed. Therefore, harnessing her superpower, Xiao Xian caused the vines to rapidly grow and strengthen, creating a tangle that tripped the girls, sending them tumbling downhill. The effect of her superpower on the plants was temporary, and they would soon return to their normal state. However, it would take approximately half a month for the plants to fully recover. Chapter 787. Capable and fearless Xiao Xian's superpower served as her ultimate weapon, granting her immunity to toxins and instilling her with unwavering fearlessness. She could confidently go anywhere without concern, including accepting Yuezheng Ting's invitation. As anticipated, they all tumbled downhill and lost consciousness, completely unaware of Xiao Xian's intervention. However, she used her powers to deliver a light, precise slap on the back of their heads, causing them to remain unconscious. Xiao Xian believed that once they woke up, they would feel something amiss but attribute it to fear and confusion rather than suspecting her involvement. With no tangible evidence, they would be unable to find fault with her. Carefully concealing herself behind the shrubs, Xiao Xian observed the evil-hearted women, eager to uncover their true intentions. She had nothing to fear, she was in control. A surge of anger coursed through Xiao Xian's veins. These two men must be searching for her, assuming she would still be unconscious. Yuezheng Ting and Qiao Wei had stooped to unimaginable depths of darkness. The men continued their search, glancing around until their gaze finally fell upon Yuezheng Ting and the other girls. Xiao Xian didn't disclose the exact number of girls they spotted, but the tone of surprise indicated that there were more than one. The confusion on the men's faces was evident, but since they didn't recognize Yuezheng Ting or Qiao Wei, they decided not to pass up the opportunity presented by the seemingly slumbering beauties before them. Engaging in a brief, hushed conversation, the two men then proceeded to approach different girls, each claiming their own prize. Just as the two men approached the women, Xiao Xian unleashed her superpower, causing the vines to grow rapidly and deliver powerful slaps to the back of their heads. The force sent them tumbling to the ground, with one falling onto Yuezheng Ting and the other onto Qiao Wei. It was as if fate had intervened, placing them in their deserved positions. Xiao Xian, though harboring deep resentment towards them, didn't want to stoop to their level of malice. She couldn't bear to witness two young women being humiliated by independent men. Her revenge had its limits, for she sought to teach them a lesson rather than inflict lasting harm. Remaining in her hidden spot, Xiao Xian sat in the grass, her gaze fixed on the unfolding events. Soon enough, a representative from the temple arrived to escort them for lunch. Xiao Xian couldn't help but smile, knowing that a captivating spectacle was about to ensue. The temple's representatives were two teenage monks who possessed extensive knowledge of the mountain terrain. When they failed to locate the women in the designated area, they grew increasingly worried. Aware of the steep slopes and potential hazards, their concern escalated. Finally, their search led them to the site of the women lying downhill. Filled with alarm, they hurriedly returned to the temple to summon additional help. Chapter 788. Crazy upon witnessing the women lying in such a manner, the two teenage monks refrained from approaching. They hesitated, fearful of potential accusations and lacking evidence to defend themselves. Instead, they swiftly returned to the temple and guided dozens of other monks to the scene. Xiao Xian, aware of the imminent arrival of the monks, positioned herself among the motionless figures and closed her eyes, feigning unconsciousness. As the monks gathered around, the scene transformed into a grand spectacle. Xiao Xian observed the unfolding drama in silence, just meters away. Taking advantage of the commotion, she discreetly employed her superpower, extending the plant roots towards Yuezheng Ting and Qiao Wei, causing them to gradually awaken. Yuezheng Ting and Qiao Wei regained consciousness, their eyes falling upon the unsightly, disheveled man lying on top of them. A horrified scream escaped their lips. Ah! Shortly after, Xiao Xian was discovered as well. She slowly woke up, deliberately portraying a pale, frightened expression on her face, as if she too had endured a terrifying ordeal. The three maids, equally distressed and injured, joined in the chorus of cries. Upon returning to the temple, Yuezheng, Ting and Xiao Wei remained engulfed in a whirlwind of humiliation and fury. Tears streamed down their faces as they cursed vehemently, unable to comprehend the unexpected turn of events. They had never imagined that a simple trip could lead to such a horrifying encounter. The mere sight of those two unknown men hovering above them had etched a nightmare into their souls, an ordeal they believed would haunt them forever. To make matters worse, their distressing ordeal had unfolded in front of numerous witnesses. Consumed by anger, the two girls yearned to seek vengeance. They directed their curses towards the men and ultimately Qiao Xian, blaming her for orchestrating the entire incident. However, Qiao Xian calmly defended herself, asserting her innocence. One had no part in this. I fell first and lost consciousness. How could I possibly have set you up? The sincerity in Qiao Xian's words resonated with the monks, who found her explanation convincing. Nevertheless, the rage within Yuezheng, Ting and Xiao Wei remained unabated, rendering them impervious to any form of reasoning. The two women's curses grew fiercer, their determination to never forgive Qiao Xian intensifying. Of course it was you, Qiao Xian. You are truly wicked. I will never forgive you for this. Nor will Al. Qiao Xian's face sank. You may be angry and one understand that. But one will not allow myself to be unjustly accused. The world is just and I fear no false accusations. If you dare to blame me, go ahead and try. Her words carried a provocative tone, as if she knew that their plan to frame her had crumbled. The two girls continued to curse loudly, their anger unrestrained. Qiao Xian halted in her tracks and turned away, her expression filled with fury. The monks furrowed their brows, feeling both uncomfortable and disgusted by the scene unfolding before them. It was clear that Mrs. Shao had fallen first, a fact that the two women did not deny. Blaming Qiao Xian seemed unreasonable and unfounded, no wonder the two girls ran into trouble. Growing weary of the situation, some monks interjected, suggesting that they return to the temple and discuss the matter later. The two women ceased their curses momentarily, redirecting their threats towards the monks, warning them never to utter a word about what had transpired that day, under the threat of eternal unforgiveness. However, the two women's threats held little weight, as they had nothing new to use as leverage. The monks unanimously expressed their commitment to keeping the events a secret, not willing to risk further entanglement with the enraged duo. Chapter 789. Stupid Yuezheng Ting. Yuezheng Ting, driven by anger, resorted to threatening the monks to swear to the Buddhas. However, her audacity and arrogance incited fury among the monks. Who did she think she was to demand such a sacred oath from them? The monks saw no reason to comply with her demands. Instead, they firmly stated that they would not swear to the Buddhas, but they would honor their commitment to keep the events confidential. Whether Yuezheng Ting chose to believe them or not was up to her. Moreover, in a community where people talked, it was highly likely that word of the incident would eventually spread. At this point, there was little more the monks could do to assist them. Qiao Wei, as a guest, refrained from further cursing, sobbing sorrowfully instead. In contrast, Yuezheng Ting's anger intensified, leading her to lash out and attack the monks verbally. However, it was important to note that the monks had no obligation to assist the Yuezheng family beyond the bounds of common decency. The monks would have already left if it weren't for the Yuezheng family's title and the location where the incident occurred. After the incident, the monks promptly sent messengers to inform both the Yuezheng family and Qiao Xian's family about what had transpired. Qiao Xian had anticipated this and had requested the monks to inform her family and the First Madam as well. Feeling sympathetic towards Qiao Xian, the monks agreed willingly and informed both parties without delay. Soon, First Madam, Ms. Mi Jr. and Nis. Fang were all informed of the situation. Ms. Mi Jr. then relayed the news to Madame Qiao, and they all became greatly concerned and anxious. First Madam took the lead and made the decision for them all to travel to the temple together. Yuezheng Ting's actions were quite impulsive and lacked foresight. Before anyone else was aware of what had happened, Yuezheng Ting threw herself into Ms. Mi Jr.'s arms, overcome with tears of fear and distress. Amidst her tearful sobs, she recounted the terrifying experience of waking up to find a repulsive and unsightly man on top of her. This revelation startled Ms. Mi Jr. and First Madam, as well as everyone else present. First Madam's voice rang out sharply as she snapped, "This girl must have been terrified and she's likely speaking nonsense. Take her to a room to rest." Only then did Ms. Mi Jr. grasp the situation. She interrupted Yuezheng Ting's cries and guided her back to the room that had been arranged by the temple. First Madam led Qiao Xian, the rest of their group, the monks who had come to their aid, and the temple chief to proceed with further discussions. The temple was now entangled in this matter, and it was necessary to clarify everything. First Madam turned to Qiao Xian and asked, "What happened?" Yuezheng Ting interjected, cursing, "She set us up. It was all her doing." First Madam's expression hardened. "Quiet down now. You'll have your chance to speak." Ms. Mi Jr.'s anger flared up. "Elder sister-in-law, you're siding with an outsider." First Madam sneered. "Have you forgotten about the fan?" Ms. Mi Jr. found herself at a loss for words. Qiao Xian responded, "Lady Yuezheng, how amusing. You had a whole entourage with you while I had no maids by my side. You invited me to join you for a pleasant time in the temple and the surrounding mountains, and now you accuse me of setting you up?" Madame Qiao intervened sharply, "Xian, mind your manners. Lady Yuezheng would never plot against you." Miss Fang, displeased by Madame Qiao's statement, retorted, "Madam, you may not be Qiao's biological mother, but that doesn't mean you should show such obvious favoritism, does it?" Chapter 790, Glaring, L. Believe Qiao Xian is being completely reasonable. Let's maintain a respectful tone, shall we? There are numerous monks present who can serve as witnesses if needed, Miss Fang interjected. Madame Qiao, unable to counter the arguments of First Madam and Ms. Mi Jr. due to their higher social status, felt a surge of anger and shame. Her face turned sour as she replied, "I am simply teaching my own daughter a lesson. What is the meaning behind all of this?" Ms. Fang snorted in response, "Qiao Xian is my daughter-in-law and I am defending her. Before you attempt to teach your daughter a lesson, perhaps you should learn the complete truth first. You initiated everything without knowing the full story. Madam Qiao, please calm down. Let's hear the entire account first. I warn everyone that any interruptions will result in removal from this discussion." Madam Qiao struggled to contain her anger. Though furious, Ms. Mi Jr. refrained from provoking any further. Both women glared coldly at Qiao Xian, awaiting her testimony. Qiao Xian lowered her gaze and began recounting the events, starting with Yuezheng Ting's invitation, their meeting in the temple and back mountains, her fall from the mountains, and waking up to witness the recent incident. Qiao Xian provided a detailed account of the events, leaving no stone unturned. First Madam couldn't help but cast a disapproving look at Qiao Xian. This child was quite audacious. Despite being aware of Yuezheng Ting's dislike for her and her sister's mischievous nature, she still decided to attend their gathering alone. Such boldness. Ms. Fang also furrowed her brow at Qiao Xian, clearly showing her disapproval of the decision. "Are you injured?" both ladies asked simultaneously, turning their attention to Qiao Xian. Feeling touched by their concern, Qiao Xian smiled and shook her head slightly. "My left arm is a bit sore, but other than that, I'm fine. I've already sent someone to fetch a doctor. They should be here soon." "Just wait for a little while," First Madam assured her. "Thank you, Aunt." First Madam sneered and shifted her gaze towards Qiao Ko. "Now it's your turn. Do you have any objections to what Xian has said?" Qiao Ko was taken aback. Qiao Ko felt the piercing gaze of her lineal mother on her. She wondered if it was just her imagination, but she couldn't shake off the feeling of impending doom. She was certain that she was doomed. Although something had happened to Qiao Wei, she was unscathed. How could she ever defend herself against the accusations that she hadn't taken good care of her younger sister? Her lineal mother would not believe it was a mere accident and would blame her for negligence. Qiao Ko had no grounds to refute Qiao Xian's account. It was true that they had invited her to their home and proposed a visit to Liulang Temple. Yuezheng Ting had arranged for lunch and a clean yard for their rest. They had attempted to conceal their ulterior motives by pretending it was a pilgrimage to pay tribute to the Buddha. But those arrangements served as evidence that they had invited Qiao Xian for this visit. They couldn't deny it. Moreover, Qiao Xian had fallen off the mountain first. That was a fact. Apart from this, Qiao Xian didn't provide any further details. She didn't even mention being pushed off the mountains. Qiao Ko trembled, her head hung low as she sobbed. I truly don't know anything." She couldn't tarnish Qiao Xian's reputation or set her up. She didn't dare to do so, and she couldn't claim ignorance either. Their current circumstances were different. She wouldn't be able to unjustly frame or falsely accuse Qiao Xian because their biological mother wouldn't allow her to defend herself. Chapter 791. Qiao Ko's jealousy. The lineal mother only sought an outlet for her anger, regardless of how baseless and ridiculous that excuse might be. However, it was evident that the old tactic wouldn't work this time. First Madam and Miss Fang were determined to prevent Qiao Xian from being wrongly accused. Even Madame Qiao couldn't exert control over these two women. Qiao Ko felt a mix of envy and bitterness. Qiao Xian seemed to be protected by an impenetrable shield, stronger than her own. Inwardly sneering, First Madam decided not to press Qiao Ko further. She let out a sigh and said emotionally, "The child must have been frightened. Let's leave her be. Elder Miss Qiao, it's your turn." Qiao Wei had been eagerly awaiting her moment. She glared at Qiao Xian and asserted, "It must have been Qiao Xian who framed us. I don't know. I don't know how she did it, but it must have been her. Why else would we all fall? Was her doing." Yuezheng Ting chimed in with a gleam in her eyes, "Sister Qiao Wei is absolutely right. Qiao Xian must have set us up." Qiao Xian sneered in response, "I'm genuinely curious about that as well. But you've given me a reminder. I didn't plan on mentioning this, but your maids actually pushed me from behind. I'm not sure how you fell, but maybe it was because you weren't accustomed to the mountains, and in your confusion you tripped each other and fell as a group. Doesn't that seem plausible?" "Sister, your absurdity knows no bounds. Are you suggesting that I should be wrongly convicted regardless of whether I'm guilty or innocent?" Qiao Xian retorted. "You're lying. Qiao Xian, how dare you defy me?" Qiao Wei snapped angrily. Qiao Wei had always been the dominant figure in the family, thanks to Madame Qiao's excessive doting. She believed that her words held absolute authority. Even if she claimed that the sun was square, both Qiao Xian and Qiao Ko would have no choice but to nod in agreement, rather than challenge her. For a long time, Qiao Wei had been adept at manipulating Qiao Xian and Qiao Ko to bend to her will. But now Qiao Xian had slipped from her grasp. Qiao Xian staunchly contradicted her, exposing her humiliation for all to see. Furious and ashamed, Qiao Wei couldn't tolerate it any longer. Yet Qiao Xian remained unafraid. She openly countered, "What do you mean? You accuse me of something I didn't do and am not allowed to defend myself?" "That's enough." Madame Qiao's voice quivered with anger. She was seething inside, but it was unclear whether she regretted raising Qiao Wei to be such an unreasonable girl. "Wei, you're frightened and confused today. Stop this behavior now. Second Lady Yuezheng, please make the final decision for us." Madame Qiao's face contorted in frustration. Qiao Wei's actions were completely irrational and bothersome. She couldn't even trust her daughter's words, let alone expect others to do so. On the other hand, Qiao Xian was remarkably composed and logical. Madame Qiao couldn't help but regret allowing this troublesome girl to survive. Why hadn't she taken care of her from the very beginning? First Madame continued to provoke her. She furrowed her brow and spoke icily, "Elder Miss Qiao, your words sound utterly ridiculous. Setting someone up requires a motive, otherwise it's nothing more than a joke." Miss Fong wiped her tears and sighed deeply. "My daughter-in-law is being bullied." Chapter 792, Too late, you're the one trying to set us up now. Do you think my daughter-in-law has no one to defend her? Poor girl, how much suffering must she have endured before getting married? Miss Fang's words dripped with disdain. Madame Qiao trembled with anger. "What are you insinuating?" Fang sneered. "You don't understand what I'm saying? This sister of hers doesn't protect or support her own sister. Instead, she sets her up without even providing a decent excuse. Do you really need me to explain how she became like this?" Madame Qiao seethed with rage, her face alternating between red and pale, trembling uncontrollably. "Bastard, you absolute bastard!" Qiao Wei erupted in anger. "Who does she think she is? She doesn't deserve to be called my sister." Miss Fang glanced at her dismissively. "That's not for you to decide, Elder Miss Qiao. You should ask your father about it." "You, Wei." Madame Qiao snapped at Qiao Wei, signaling her to stop. She was also incensed by Miss Fang's relentless targeting of someone much younger. How shameless. Qiao Wei ground her teeth together, glaring fiercely at Miss Fang. Miss Fang remained unfazed, raising an eyebrow with an air of disdain. Qiao Wei was only intimidating within the confines of their home. First Madame turned to Ms. Mi Jr. "Second sister-in-law, I intend to investigate this matter. Can I count on your assistance?" Ms. Mi Jr. sneered. "Very well, elder sister-in-law. I appreciate your efforts." Ms. Mi Jr. understood that when her elder sister-in-law made a proposal, she had no choice but to agree. She would assign her own men to assist in the investigation, as they feared her authority. She would simply follow the orders and ensure the task was carried out. First Madame then addressed Madame Qiao. "Madame Qiao, do you have any objections?" Madame Qiao was filled with objections, but with Ms. Mi Jr. already on board, she had no choice but to voice her agreement. She forced herself to nod. "Please, First Madame, I will see if Auntie Ling can be of any assistance to you." In an instant, First Madame commanded, "Take the 3 maids down. Bind and gag them, then interrogate them one by one." Auntie Hua and her maids swiftly moved into action, swiftly subduing the maids before they could call for help. She, assist Auntie Hua with the interrogations. Chu and Auntie Liang, go and inquire about the monks. Remember, maintain politeness. With several individuals departing, the room fell into a hushed silence once again. At that moment the doctors arrived. First Madame instructed them to examine Xiao Xian. Yuezheng Ting pursed her lips, feeling disheartened. Despite being a part of the Yuezheng family, her elder aunt was now aiding an outsider. She couldn't comprehend what was so special about Xiao Xian that garnered her elder aunt's attention. Ms. Mi Jr. also harbored a dislike for the situation but dared not voice her opinion. She was already convinced of the culprit's identity. Furthermore, First Madame had ample justification for her actions. She was no match for her. She realized that she lacked any authority or influence in this situation, so she chose not to subject herself to further humiliation. Madame Qiao, Qiao Ko, and Qiao Wei were equally taken aback. They hadn't anticipated that First Madame would show such concern for Xiao Xian. Madame Qiao deeply regretted her past actions. If she had known about Xiao Xian's relationship with First Madame, she would have prevented Qiao Wei and Yuezheng Ting from plotting against her. Instead, she would have compelled Xiao Xian to foster a better rapport between herself and First Madame. Chapter 793. Not dropping. Regrettably, it was too late for Madame Qiao to take any corrective action. She had paid 2 visits to second Mrs. Yuezheng and engaged in friendly conversations, unaware that First Madame was well aware of these meetings. A burning sensation consumed Madame Qiao's heart. She glared fiercely at Xiao Xian, wishing she could incinerate her on the spot. She had misjudged her completely. It now dawned on her just how wrong she had been about Xiao Xian all this time. Surely this cunning girl was reveling in their predicament, secretly mocking them. The doctor confirmed that Xiao Xian had suffered a minor fracture in her arm, along with some superficial skin wounds and strained muscles. She needed ample rest. Additionally, due to her fall from the mountain, there was a possibility of a head injury, requiring further examination in the coming days. First Madame gazed at her with genuine concern. "You have endured so much. Good girl, rest well and don't dwell on these matters. If you need anything, send someone to me and I will provide assistance without hesitation." Miss Fang sighed once more. "You must be more cautious. Why did you venture alone without a maid? Take good care of yourself when you return home." Xiao Xian replied with sweetness, "Mom, Aunt, I apologize for this incident. I promise to exercise caution and prioritize rest upon returning home." "That's good to hear." Madame Qiao and Ms. Mi Jr. were left speechless, their hearts heavy with regret. First Madame finally instructed the doctor to examine Yuezheng Ting and Qiao Wei. Fortunately, neither of them had any serious injuries, only a few minor skin wounds. Qiao Wei had a longer cut on her arm, but it was expected to heal without leaving a scar. Madame Qiao and Ms. Mi Jr. found themselves at a loss for words. Their daughter's injuries were not severe enough to justify their anger and resentment. Auntie Hua swiftly obtained the results and returned to deliver the message. As witnesses, they needed to know the truth behind the incident. Yuezheng Ting had orchestrated the entire affair. She had invited Xiao Xian and arranged the outing at Lingyuan Temple. Sensibly. She had chosen a mountain behind the temple to carry out their plan, rather than in her own abbey. The maids bravely confessed that they were instructed by Yuezheng Ting and Qiao Wei to push Xiao Xian off the mountains. Auntie Hua chose to withhold the remaining details, in an attempt to preserve some dignity for Yuezheng Ting and Qiao Wei. However, everyone present was well aware that the maids wouldn't have taken such action without orders from their respective mistresses. Miss Fang grew increasingly agitated, her gaze filled with disdain as she directed it towards Madame Qiao and Ms. Mi Jr. She sneered, "Madame Qiao, you better keep a close eye on your daughter and leave my daughter-in-law alone. She is wicked and malicious to the core. Perhaps she will spend the rest of her life in loneliness." "What's the matter? Can't accept the truth?" Miss Fang retorted, delivering a verbal blow that left Qiao Wei and Madame Qiao feeling utterly exposed and scorched by shame. Miss Fang's blame was directed towards Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei, but Yuezheng Ting felt deeply humiliated by the accusations. Unable to contain her anger, she snapped back, "It was all Qiao Wei's idea. I only helped because I thought we were friends. I have nothing to do with this. You can put all the blame on her. After all, we're talking about her own sister here. Mother, one want to go home now." Qiao Wei was stunned, her eyes filled with disbelief as she stared at Yuezheng Ting. "It was you, Madame Qiao swiftly intervened, interrupting Qiao Wei and restraining her own overwhelming frustration. She spoke with a dark tone. Qiao Wei has always been shielded under my protection. She is too innocent to be aware of any of this. Chapter 794, Blaming. But she is not out to do anything evil like setting up sisters. It must have been the maid who persuaded her to do so. The maid grew up with her miss, and her miss adores her deeply. She even tried to turn me against her a few days ago, so I lectured Wei. I thought she had changed herself, but apparently she came up with a new idea like this. I will definitely punish her now. How terrible. Xian, Madame Qiao tried to present herself as friendly. You are a very kind-hearted and understanding girl, and you barely need our care. Your sister is misguided, and I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive her. Qiao Wei clenched her hand tightly, feeling the stinging pain. She bit her lip, consumed by distress. Since when did she have to beg Qiao Xian for forgiveness? Qiao Wei's heart ached, overwhelmed by the sheer humiliation of the situation. She couldn't comprehend what was happening. Was it all just a terrible dream? This person, who didn't even dare meet her gaze and whom she could lecture and strike as she pleased, was now someone she had to plead for forgiveness from? Qiao Xian was being defended and protected, and even her mother felt the need to bow to her. Tears welled up in Qiao Wei's eyes, cascading down her cheeks uncontrollably. She felt a rush of humiliation and hastily wiped them away, trying to conceal her vulnerability. Concerned, Madame Qiao interjected, Xian, your sister is crying because she feels remorse. But she wasn't. Her tears were born out of anger. The blades of humiliation struck Qiao Wei's heart, causing her face to flush with heat. The amalgamation of anger, humiliation, sadness, and embarrassment became unbearable. Overwhelmed, she sought solace in Madame Qiao's embrace, her sobs echoing with pain. Madame Qiao comforted her, secretly berating Qiao Xian in her thoughts. What a despicable person. First Madame had watched everything impassively. Ms. Mi Jr. shifted the blame onto her maid. The two maids stood pale and trembling, afraid to utter a single word in their defense. Their lives were at the mercy of their mistresses, and any opposition could cost them dearly. But for young maids they might even suffer a lot before they die. Qiao Xian chimed in, Aunt, now that we have identified the culprits, please make a decision. It was the maids who coerced them. As long as Yuezheng, Ting and Qiao Wei insisted that the maids acted of their own volition, no one would have concrete evidence to prove otherwise, although everyone was well aware of the truth. First Madame could certainly pressure the maids to reveal the true mastermind, but Qiao Xian didn't want that to happen. She and the Qiao family could part ways. However, First Madame didn't have to sever ties with the extended family for the sake of an outsider like Qiao Xian. If news of the incident spread, it would cast her in a negative light, implying she was petty. After all, she was unharmed, wasn't she? Qiao Wei and Yuezheng Ting had already suffered reputational damage, which was worse than Qiao Xian's situation. People tend to sympathize with those who have endured greater suffering, sadly reflecting the nature of society. As the wife of the provincial champion, Shao Yunduan had a promising future. Qiao Xian hadn't sustained any serious injuries or even been frightened, so she could gracefully withdraw and preserve her good reputation. That would be preferable, wouldn't it? Qiao Xian's words implicitly confirmed her agreement to hold the maids responsible. First Madame comprehended her intention and couldn't help but inwardly sigh. This child was truly perceptive. Sister-in-law, Li is Ting's maid. Do you believe Ting should also bear some responsibility? Chapter 795, Compensation. Mi Jr. gritted her teeth. Yes. Then how do you plan to make amends? Ms. Mi Jr.'s eyes widened. Another compensation? She had already sacrificed 10,000 liang, and now she was being asked for more? B0x. Calm First Madame spoke up. Xian was fortunate not to encounter any harm. However, the maids did attempt to harm her. If something had actually happened, do you think a mere maid would have sufficed to resolve the matter? Xian is the wife of the provincial champion, and provincial champion Shao happens to be a close friend of young Master Xia, who is aguist of the Xia family. She was implying that if something had truly befallen Qiao Xian, Shao Yunduan might turn to the influential Xia family, who could delve deeper into the situation and involve more individuals than just the maid. After Shao Yunduan became the provincial champion, Xia Jingrong had proudly publicized their friendship. Shao Yunduan even received an invitation to visit the esteemed Xia family. The Xia family highly valued their association with a provincial champion, and Xia Jingrong had always spoken highly of him. Under the weight of First Madame's influence, Ms. Mi Jr. quickly retreated. L will compensate Mrs. Shao with 5,000 liang for the trouble she encountered. Only 5,000? What about 8,000? Just 8,000? 10,000 then? Isn't that enough? Is a mere 10,000 enough for attempted murder? Ms. Mi Jr.'s fury intensified, causing her heart to ache. Then state the amount. 50,000 liang. What? First Madam stated the sum calmly, nearly choking Ms. Mi Jr. with the weight of it. Madame Qiao and her daughters were all taken aback, stunned by the staggering figure. Qiao Wei felt tears welling up, unable to comprehend the magnitude of 50,000 liang. Qiao Ko's eyes darted to Qiao Xian, a mix of jealousy and envy coursing through her. 50,000 liang? That was an exorbitant sum. While they might not be able to afford such an amount, the compensation would certainly be substantial. How fortunate was this detestable woman to receive such staunch defense from First Madam. Though the Yuezheng family possessed wealth, Ms. Mi Jr. herself had limited resources. She sneered, "Why not just rob me outright, elder sister-in-law?" First Madam inwardly responded, "Yes, I am essentially robbing you. So what? I've already told you, Xian is the wife of the provincial champion." She was not some obscure figure. She held the esteemed title of the provincial champion's wife. Her young husband had achieved the remarkable feat of becoming a provincial champion in his very first attempt at the examination, an incredibly rare accomplishment. He possessed a bright and promising future. However, her husband would never tolerate his wife being framed and almost killed by someone from the Yuezheng family. Unless they offered the most sincere apology and took into consideration the implications for First Madam and Yuezheng Shao, they would not let this matter go. Ms. Mi Jr. found herself at a loss for words, growing increasingly irritated. "But I don't have that much cash. That is not my concern." In the end, Ms. Mi Jr. had no choice but to reluctantly agree to provide the cash to Qiao Xian within 3 days. First Madam added, "You must also offer a formal apology." "What?" Ms. Mi Jr. exclaimed, "Elder sister-in-law, this is going too far." First Madam shot her a cold glance. "You made a mistake and yet you are unwilling to apologize? Either you or Ting will suffice." Yuezheng Ting had already been silenced by fear. She dared not make a move or defend herself, keeping her head lowered as if oblivious to the proceedings. Elder Aunt was the person she feared the most. Elder Aunt had always disregarded petty matters. She paid no attention to their minor schemes and deceit. However, when she set her mind to something, no one could surpass her. Yuezheng Ting had been well aware of this for quite some time, but she was unwilling to apologize to Qiao Xian. It was utterly humiliating. She was a young girl who cherished her reputation and dignity. She couldn't bear the thought of losing face. Chapter 796, Ceasing MS. Mi Jr. had a multitude of angry retorts on the tip of her tongue, but when First Madam emphasized Qiao Xian's status as the provincial champion's wife, she found herself unable to utter another word. Feeling conflicted and not wanting her daughter to bear any more pain, Ms. Ni Jr. reluctantly offered her apology. Qiao Xian was already quite content with the outcome. Without First Madam's intervention, she wouldn't have achieved such a favorable resolution. First Madam had pushed Ms. Mi Jr. to her limits, ensuring that she didn't harbor any ill feelings over the matter. Simultaneously, she did not want First Madam to become entangled in her own predicament. Qiao Xian graciously accepted the apology. And with that the incident came to an end. B0X. Calm First Madam stated that if a similar incident were to occur in the future, they should report the entire matter to the appropriate governmental authorities. She felt too ashamed to continue serving as the mediator. These words weighed heavily on Nis. Mi Jr. and Yuezheng Ting's hearts. They were pained yet startled as well. Once Ms. Mi Jr. had settled, it was Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei's turn to address the situation. First Madam gazed up at Madame Qiao, causing her to tremble involuntarily. She forced a smile. "We will discuss this further when we return home. I apologize for the inconvenience, First Madam." She insinuated that the matter was their own affair and there was no need for First Madam to interfere. First Madam and Qiao Xian shared a good relationship, and she was not easily swayed by Madame Qiao's words. Furthermore, Miss Fong was on their side as well. Miss Fong strongly disagreed with the suggestion. "I'll disagree, Madam-in-law. Even brothers settle matters fairly. Elder Miss Qiao's maid nearly killed my daughter-in-law, and I implore First Madam to arbitrate. She is known for her fairness, so please, First Madam, be the judge." A smile played on First Madam's lips. "Thank you for your support, Sister Fong. I won't allow Xian to suffer just to defend herself. Moreover, both maids were involved in the same scheme, so they should face equal punishment. It's a simple matter and I can act as the witness. Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei were taken aback. They were on the verge of exploding in anger. Madame Qiao would never admit that the maid was the mastermind. Even Ms. Mi Jr. didn't blame her own maid. So now, Madame Qiao was expected to apologize to Qiao Xian and pay her 50,000 liang? It was simply outrageous. Madame Qiao tightly grasped Qiao Wei's hands, urging her to remain silent. She spoke in a low voice, filled with regret. Xian, you were the victim in this incident and I apologize for our actions. But we are sisters, let's put an end to this. Qiao Xian responded, her tone firm, I am the daughter-in-law of the Shao family and the wife of the provincial champion. I accept your apology. However, when will you provide me with the 50,000 liang? One believe in treating everyone equally, don't you? Qiao Wei couldn't contain her disdain any longer and sneered, you have the audacity to ask for 50,000 liang. In her eyes, this woman wasn't even worth 50,000 liang as a human being. Ms. Mi Jr. sneered as well, but she had no intention of staying any longer. Moreover, with outsiders present, Madame Qiao would not be able to display her influence effectively. So she decided to leave with Yuezheng Ting and requested First Madame to accompany them. First Madame turned her attention to Qiao Xian. Qiao Xian exchanged a glance with her, nodding to indicate that it was fine. First Madame departed with Ms. Mi Jr. and Yuezheng Ting, creating a sense of relief in the room. With their departure, Madame Qiao, Qiao Wei and Qiao Ko let out a collective sigh, finally feeling a sense of relaxation. Qiao Wei abandoned her pretense and locked her gaze onto Qiao Xian, sneering disdainfully. Who do you think you are? The daughter of a lowly concubine? You are not even worth the position of a maid in front of my mother and me. What gives you the audacity to demand apologies and compensation from us? 50,000 liang? Do you truly have the nerve to ask for such a sum? Chapter 797, Apology Bang. A loud noise resonated through the room as Miss Fang slammed her hand on the table, causing the teacup to wobble and creating a startle for Madame Qiao and her daughter. Elder Miss Qiao, you are truly despicable. How dare you, why not? You should address me as your sister-in-law's mother. How dare you insult someone by calling them a low-class maid? I will inform my son and have him confront your father about this matter. You cannot bully people like this. Qiao Xian felt a warm surge of reassurance flowing through her heart. She gently held onto Miss Fang's arm and whispered, Mother, please calm down. B0X. Calm. Miss Fang was genuinely furious. She sneered, they believe they are superior to us. Well then, let's inform Yunduan and have him defend us. Mrs. In-law, we are family and we can resolve this through discussion. Madame Qiao interjected, feeling a mix of anger and anxiety. She couldn't allow Miss Fang to leave like this. If Shao Yunduan were to learn about the situation and inform the old master, Qiao Wei would undoubtedly face severe consequences. Wei, apologize. Mom? Apologize now. Madame Qiao's voice snapped with authority. Qiao Wei clenched her lips tightly, unwilling to comply. Qiao Xian let out a disdainful snort and spoke calmly, Mother, don't force your sister to do something against her will. 1 am accustomed to receiving apologies. But I am curious, when will you be returning the 50,000 liang to me? Miss Fang sneered in agreement. Not a single penny less. Otherwise, I will have my son inquire about this with Officer Qiao. Madame Qiao's face contorted in frustration. Qiao Xian, are you really going this far? Your father is returning to the capital soon, and Shao Yunduan will be taking the examination there. He is a stranger in that city, and aren't you considering the assistance your father could provide? Qiao Xian sneered back. These are separate matters. Are you attempting to threaten me, Mother? Besides, as far as I know, my husband's examination will take place before father can even secure a transfer back to the capital. How would this so-called help work? You will be going back to the capital with your husband, won't you? And because of your interference, I wonder if you will bring trouble or aid to my husband. Yes. Miss Fang interjected sharply. Stop with the sweet talk and pay us what is owed. Miss Fang hesitated for a moment upon hearing Madame Qiao's words, but as she listened further, she realized that Qiao Xian was correct in her assessment of Madame Qiao. Madame Qiao was not concerned about her son's well-being, she was instead causing him trouble. Madame Qiao grew increasingly annoyed and responded bluntly, We don't have 50,000 liang at home. If you want it, go ask your father yourself. In that case I will do just that, Qiao Xian sneered. And I will also ask Elder Aunt to document today's events so I can present it to my father. He shouldn't assume I am lying and let others distort the truth. Madame Qiao trembled with fury, her eyes filled with icy anger. Miss Qiao, don't worry. Duan will help you. My daughter-in-law will never be bullied, not even by her own mother's family. Bah! Don't underestimate us. Miss Fang reassured Qiao Xian while pulling her away. Let's stop wasting our time with them. They are nothing but irritants to me. Madame Qiao. After Qiao Xian departed with her mother-in-law, Madame Qiao, in a fit of anger, grabbed the teacups and hurled them at Qiao Ko, cursing, "Useless thing! Your sister is honest and straightforward, and I entrusted her to your care. Why do you always fail at everything?" Chapter 798. Jealousy. Qiao Ko trembled on her knees. Mother, it's my fault. Enough. No more tears. Madame Qiao snapped, silencing her daughter. Qiao Ko bit her lips, desperately trying to hold back her tears, but they continued to stream down her face. She couldn't control Qiao Wei or stop her from doing as she pleased. If she had the power to do so, it would be a different story altogether. But she was bound by the control her lineal mother had over her life. No matter how much pain she felt, she had to suppress it deep within. She couldn't even defend herself in front of her own father. B0X. Calm as she thought about Qiao Xian, her emotions welled up. Qiao Xian had endured far worse circumstances than she had, yet she had managed to rise above it all. She was now surrounded by people who protected and supported her, and her husband was a provincial champion. Jealousy consumed Qiao Ko's heart. With a resolute determination, she made up her mind to steal Qiao Wei's marriage. Mom, do we really have to give that wretched woman 50,000 liang? No, never. She doesn't deserve a single thing. Qiao Ko declared vehemently, her eyes filled with envy and resentment. Enough. Madame Qiao restrained herself from slapping Qiao Ko, but her voice was cold and cutting. Shame on you. You've messed up everything. Qiao Wei interjected, feeling uneasy. Elle didn't expect this. Yuezheng Ting came up with the idea. She promised it would work, but how could I have known she'd be so useless? Madame Qiao closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Opening her eyes, she spoke slowly, "Join me to the Shao family today." Qiao Wei's expression changed. Why? To apologize, of course. Madame Qiao replied firmly. Listen carefully now. You must seek Qiao Xian's forgiveness no matter what it takes. This way she will never bring up the issue of compensation again. Mother. Qiao Wei was both surprised and furious. Are you asking me to bow down to Qiao Xian? Yes. Madame Qiao didn't care about her daughter's mood anymore. She sneered, it's time for you to develop your own character. Use Qiao Xian as a means to strengthen yourself. I'm doing this for your own good, so don't overlook the opportunity. Qiao Wei. Getting herself humiliated by Qiao Xian for her own good? Qiao Wei was disappointed and saddened. Even her mother was treating her like this? Madame Qiao felt tired and annoyed, lectured her a few more sentences before bringing them back to the hostel. Back at the hostel, Concubine Du saw Madame Qiao and Elder Miss dark faces and the weird atmosphere around them, and she was very cautious as she served them. Back in Qiao Ko's room, Concubine Du asked what was going on. Qiao Ko was shedding tears, but she could not utter a word. She did not tell Concubine Du what was going on. Nor did she throw herself into her mother's arms. She was no longer this weak anymore. She knew clearly that Concubine Du could not give her any consolation. Nor could she obtain justice for her. She could not even keep her own private money. What happened? Ko, don't frighten me, tell me now. Concubine Du's constant questions made Qiao Ko impatient. She wiped the tears and recounted the whole thing. Concubine Du got anxious. Why did you offend Qiao Xian anyway? Chapter 799. Not my idea. Elle told you not to offend Qiao Xian anymore. She is not part of the Qiao family and she won't give you any barriers. She is provincial champion's wife and offending her doesn't help you. You know, life is unpredictable. We never could have imagined that Qiao Xian would rise to such prominence. It's important not to antagonize her. Who knows, if Shao Yunduan secures a position in the governmental office, you being her sister might come in handy. You may find yourself in need of her support one day. Concubine Du sighed. Qiao Ko snorted and threw a disdainful look at Concubine Du B0X. This woman knew nothing but kept talking about how to depend on others. What was the point? You think it had been my intention? Yeah. Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei told me to follow the order, and what else could I do to object to that? Concubine Du was at a loss for words, feeling the weight of Qiao Ko's predicament. She knew that going against the orders of Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei was not an option for Qiao Ko. They were both stubborn and difficult to sway, making it challenging to please them. Frustration welled up within concubine Du, and she clenched her teeth in anger. This life is truly unbearable. Once we return to the capital, I will find a way to secure a good match for you so you can get married. Qiao Ko glanced at her, her expression filled with a mixture of skepticism and resignation. She no longer believed in concubine Du's promises or held any high expectations. She had experienced disappointment before, and she was determined not to let herself be disappointed again. There was little trust left between them, and Qiao Ko knew she had to rely on herself to navigate the challenges that lay ahead. She was determined to find a suitable suitor on her own. She didn't need concubine Du's assistance. The constant nagging from concubine Du became background noise to Qiao Ko, as if mosquitoes were buzzing in her ears. Claiming exhaustion, she declared her need for sleep and managed to silence concubine Du's prattling. The next day, Madame Qiao and Qiao M/Ei left to make the apology, leaving concubine Du and Qiao Ko behind. It was evident that Madame Qiao didn't want them present for Qiao Wei's humbling encounter with Qiao Xian. Meanwhile, Shao Yunduan was at home. Madame Qiao took the opportunity to remind everyone of the Qiao family's noble status in the capital and their past service to the emperor. She emphasized their valuable connections, including Qiao Wei's engagement to a duke's mansion. Madame Qiao expressed her intention to support Shao Yunduan once he was in the capital, leveraging their influence to help him progress. She proposed that they put the past behind them, forgive each other, and continue socializing as before. Shao Yunduan firmly rejected Madame Qiao's offer. I have my own plans, Madame Qiao. You don't need to worry about me. My wife cannot be bullied like this. Madame Qiao sneered, ready to mock Shao Yunduan's naivety. Without influential connections in the capital, a poor scholar like him would never succeed. It would take him decades to achieve even a minor position, perhaps becoming a low-ranking officer in the Imperial Academy if luck was on his side. However, she realized it was not the appropriate time to voice her doubts. Qiao Wei was unwilling and filled with remorse. She didn't want to be here apologizing. This infuriated Ms. Fong, who couldn't contain her frustration and lashed out at Qiao Wei, pushing her to the brink of explosion. Madame Qiao, anxious and angry, intervened and insisted that Qiao Wei make the apology. The whole situation felt like a farce, a meaningless charade. In the end, Madame Qiao promised to provide immediate compensation of 10,000 liang, with the remaining 4 to be repaid in the future. Chapter 800. No choice, however, the IOU note had to be written in Qiao Xian's handwriting. The note detailed the events of the previous day and explained the debt owed. Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei also left their fingerprints on the note as a sign of acknowledgement. Madame Qiao reluctantly agreed, fully aware that the note served as a bargaining chip in Qiao Xian's possession. Neither party expected the debt to be repaid, nor did they anticipate Qiao Xian to inquire about it. Madame Qiao had no choice but to accept the terms. In exchange, Qiao Xian promised not to tell the incident not be reported to the old master. B0x. Madame Qiao reluctantly agreed, with the condition that the money would be provided to Qiao Xian within 3 days after their return to the county. However, Madame Qiao only had 1,000 liang in cash. She had no alternative but to comply, understanding that if the old master were to find out, Qiao Wei would face punishment, and the old master would be deeply disappointed in her. She had maintained her reputation as a virtuous wife throughout her entire life, and she couldn't afford to tarnish it now, especially in the eyes of the old master. Her only hope was that her son would attain a high-ranking position and her daughter would become capable and accomplished. Only then would she have nothing to fear. However, she knew that such a day had not yet arrived. If the old master harbored any resentment towards her, her life would be miserable upon their return to the capital. The risk was too great to take. Madame Qiao and Qiao Wei were infuriated as they left Qiao Xian's residence. Upon their return to the hostel, Qiao Ko received further punishment in the form of slaps to her face. From that day forward, Madame Qiao never visited Qiao Xian again. However, she did encounter Ms. Mi Jr. once more, and after 2 days had passed, they all returned to the county. Qiao Wei would have normally confided in her father about the incident, but this time she remained silent. Madame Qiao warned her sternly, emphasizing the importance of keeping everything a secret, regardless of her doubts or dissatisfaction. Madame Qiao couldn't disclose the truth about whether or not Qiao Xian had helped. She also mentioned that the first madam had never been kind to Qiao Xian anyway. Furthermore, she added that the family was difficult to befriend due to their arrogance. Officer Qiao believed his wife's words and felt regretful about the situation, but he chose not to inquire further. At the Yuezheng family's residence, Ms. Mi Jr. was unable and unwilling to pay the 50,000 liang in cash. Even if she had the means, she refused to do so. Consequently, she decided to discuss the matter with her husband. Ms. Mi Jr. selectively withheld the truth, only sharing the part of the story that could benefit her. Upon hearing about the 50,000 liang demand, the second old master became furious. He exclaimed that they were being utterly bullied. How could they rob their own family like this? They were all part of the same family, and such mistreatment was unacceptable. The second old master's anger reached a boiling point, and he even contemplated confronting the first madam along with Ms. Mi Jr. Typically, the second old master refrained from involving himself in family matters. He knew that he couldn't compete with the influential first section of the family, so he preferred to maintain silence. However, seeing his sons doing well gave him some consolation. Yet, it didn't mean that the first section of the family could exploit them as they pleased. Startled by her husband's reaction, Ms. Mi Jr. quickly intervened. What she truly needed was for her husband to assist her in covering the debt, not to create further trouble by confronting the first madam. Fearful of the consequences, Ms. Mi Jr. was reluctant to allow the second old master to confront the first madam, knowing that it would put her at a disadvantage. To avoid worsening the situation, Ms. Mi Jr. decided to adopt a more amicable approach. She attempted to convince the second old master not to pursue the matter any further. Although the second old master was taken aback by this unexpected change in attitude, he restrained himself from escalating the conflict with the first madam. Chapter 801. Bad luck. Fueled by anger and a sense of injustice, the second old master couldn't simply let the matter go. The amount in question was 50,000 liang, not a trivial sum of 5,000. After contemplating the situation, he decided to approach his own mother, Madame Yuezheng, seeking her support and assistance. Surely Madame Yuezheng, being the matriarch of the family, would be able to help them. To gain Madame Yuezheng's sympathy, the second old master embellished the story, presenting it in a way that painted their family as victims of undue oppression. His intention was to provoke a strong reaction from Madame Yuezheng, hoping that she would stand up for them. Madame Yuezheng, who held a deep admiration for her second son's family, was well aware of their intelligence and capabilities. However, she couldn't deny that her elder son's family was competent. Furthermore, she couldn't muster much interest or concern when it came to her second son's lack of a male heir. As a result, she wasn't always inclined to defend them in every situation. B0x. However, Madame Yuezheng found her elder son's wife's demands excessive. Wanting to extract 50,000 liang from the second section of the family seemed unjustifiably high. With a sense of urgency, Madame Yuezheng summoned both the first madam and Ms. Mi Jr. to her presence. Ms. Mi Jr. was filled with bitter frustration, never expecting that her husband would take such actions behind her back. The first madam proceeded to share the entire story, recounting how Yuezheng Ting had made an attempt on the life of the provincial champion's wife. Given the close relationship between the Xie family and the provincial champion Shao, with the Xie family considering him an honored guest and having a strong bond with their young master, it was highly unlikely that provincial champion Shao would forgive them without a substantial compensation of 50,000 liang. Understanding the Xie family's influence and the importance of maintaining their connection, Madame Yuezheng contemplated whether Yuezheng Ting deserved severe punishment for her actions. Ms. Mi Jr. found herself in a difficult position, unable to defend her actions but weakly attempting to explain that it was the fault of a maid. Madame Yuezheng and the second old master were both taken aback by the revelations. The second old master's anger intensified as he glared at Ms. Mi Jr. "Why didn't you inform me of this earlier? This is not what you told me. Look at the mess you've created." Madame Yuezheng's brow furrowed. "That is your own fault. You should be capable enough to relay a story accurately, shouldn't you?" As a united family, there was no need for them to hide the truth. It was common knowledge that the maid acted under the instructions of Yuezheng Ting. Everyone was aware of this fact. Ms. Mi Jr. had no ground to argue. However, she found the demanded compensation excessive. She bitterly complained, "Ting made a mistake. It was all because of Elder Miss Qiao's influence. Elder Miss Qiao wanted to punish her sister out of jealousy for her better life. But Ting got dragged into it. I will tell Ting to cut ties with her. But mother, I don't have 50,000 liang." The second old master sneered, "You can gather the cash yourself. I won't be able to help you." With those words, the second old master stormed off in anger, leaving Ms. Mi Jr. shocked and at a loss. "You just left like that? What was she supposed to do now?" "Mother." Ms. Mi Jr. turned to Madame Yuezheng, tears welling up in her eyes. Madame Yuezheng frowned. She couldn't simply let it go. Nor could she expect her elder son's wife to provide the funds. That was out of the question. Moreover, she believed that Ms. Mi Jr. deserved to be punished. While it was possible that elder Miss Qiao held a grudge against her sister, it didn't necessarily mean that Yuezheng Ting had no involvement. Perhaps Ms. Mi Jr. was also implicated in some way. Madame Yuezheng had no interest in delving into the matter with Ms. Mi Jr. She understood everything implicitly. Chapter 802, Compensation. Al will pay 30,000 liang for you and you will take care of the rest. Madame Yuezheng, having considerable wealth, instructed her servant to bring 30,000 liang in cash and handed it directly to First Madame. First Madame had no objections to this arrangement. Madame Yuezheng had her own personal funds, and she was free to allocate them as she pleased, as long as she wasn't forced to dip into the shared savings of the family. The first section of the family did not require Madame Yuezheng's assistance in this manner. B0x. Second sister-in-law, should I have my people collect the remaining amount now or tomorrow? Asked First Madame, indicating that they would retrieve the money the following day. Ms. Mi Jr. became infuriated and responded bitterly, Al will send my people to deliver it to you, elder sister-in-law. Very well. I will be waiting. Bah. Ms. Mi Jr. had 20,000 liang in cash, but it was a substantial portion of her personal savings. Reluctantly, she gathered the cash and requested Auntie Ling to arrange for its prompt delivery. She wanted to put this matter behind her as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, First Madame added some exquisite brocades that her son had gifted to her the previous year, along with a set of beautiful ornaments, to the presents she was taking to the Shao family. She personally headed there to deliver the gifts. Qiao Xian had no intention of accepting First Madame's presents, but she insisted with a smile, saying, I am your aunt, and this is a gesture to help you feel more at ease. I have plenty of these items stored away. Qiao Xian smiled appreciatively and accepted all the gifts. First Madame engaged in small talk with Qiao Xian for a while before advising, you should discuss the management of your lands with the estate manager so they can take care of them in your absence. It's time for you to return home as soon as possible. Shao will handle everything else for you. When you visit next time, you can evaluate and select any preferred managers and page boys to keep here. Perceiving Qiao Xian's confusion, First Madame responded with a sigh and a smile. Ting and your sister found themselves in a compromising situation with two men in broad daylight. Just wait and see, the rumor mill will undoubtedly spread. People will mock us and they won't know how to handle it. I have always been the one to clean up their messes, but this time, I'm staying out of it. It's a lesson they need to learn from. That's why it's best for you to leave soon and distance yourself from this situation. First Madame had no daughters who needed to secure marriage alliances, and her granddaughter was still too young to worry about such matters. Furthermore, the two branches of the family were distinct entities. People wouldn't be foolish enough to hold the first section of the family accountable for the misdeeds of the second section. If anyone dared to think otherwise, the first section of the family would simply disregard them. Qiao Xian suddenly grasped the underlying dynamics. Indeed, she was tangentially involved, and staying here for too long would only invite unnecessary trouble upon herself. Realizing that it was in her best interest to distance herself from the situation, Qiao Xian expressed her gratitude to First Madame. Aunt, I sincerely thank you for reminding me. I almost overlooked that aspect. We will make the necessary preparations and leave in 2 days' time. That's good, and Xuan will accompany you on the journey back home. Thank you so much, Aunt. First Madame smiled warmly. It's nothing really. Qiao Xian shared the news with the rest of her family, and they all agreed with the decision. They had experienced and witnessed enough during their stay, and it was time to return home. They reassured themselves that they could always come back in the future. Eldest uncle in particular had been longing for home for quite some time. Although he faced opposition from his wife, he couldn't hide his joy as they embarked on the journey back home. Chapter 803, Valuable with their departure imminent, they swiftly made preparations. The excessive amount of purchases they made resulted in a substantial amount of luggage to carry. Shao Sanlang and Yang Xiaoni in particular had bought an abundance of food, resembling two squirrels with their stash. Qiao Xian too had numerous food ingredients, a third of which she discreetly stored in her spatial storage. Among them were various dried seafood items, unknown to those around her. This strategy allowed them to save the trouble of carrying too many things back home. Regarding the fields, Yuezheng Shao's manager had taken care of all the necessary arrangements on Qiao Xian's behalf. All she needed to do was inform the housekeeper of the tasks to be carried out, ensuring everything proceeded according to plan. B0x. As long as Yuezheng Shao was present, the manager would not dare deceive anyone. With everything settled and their luggage packed, they prepared to depart the following day. Xiao Yunduan bid farewell to Xie Jingrong at the Xie family before returning. In his hands he carried a pot of orchids as a parting gift. Qiao Xian was taken aback by the Xie family's generosity upon realizing that the orchids they had gifted were of the highest quality. Xiao Yunduan explained the situation, saying, "The Xie family mentioned that this silver ink orchid is dying, and their florist couldn't revive it. They asked if we could save it." Xiao Yunduan didn't consider themselves particularly skilled at planting. At least he didn't think so. Weren't they just planting the same things as other families? Perhaps it was the quality of the soil that made everything flourish. However, since the orchid appeared to be on the verge of dying and he felt sorry for it, he hesitantly brought it home. Xiao Yunduan decided to find a suitable pot to replant the orchid and placed it near the spring in Qiao Xian's garden. The spring's water could moisten the grass and trees, offering a chance for the flower to be saved. Curious, Qiao Xian inquired, "Is this silver ink orchid very valuable?" Xiao Yunduan nodded and replied, "It's worth a fortune, equivalent to a significant amount of gold. It's the only one in the entire Xie family." Qiao Xian gasped. The Xie family gave it to them directly rather than try to save it? Typically, most people would try to save a plant as long as there was even the slightest chance of survival, especially when it was a rare specimen. Qiao Xian gratefully accepted the orchid and said with a smile, "Darling, you may not know, but let me take care of it from now on." She intended to use her special abilities to help the orchid thrive, little by little. Xiao Yunduan didn't object and reassured her with a smile, "Just take it easy and don't feel pressured." "But if it does manage to survive," Xiao Yunduan paused for a moment and suggested, "Should we consider returning it to the Xie family?" Qiao Xian had no objections. She smiled and nodded, saying, "Of course. Our soil is fertile and it might truly thrive here." With that in mind, she planned to cultivate a new shoot from the orchid and then transfer it to her personal space for further nurturing. The orchids in her personal space were flourishing, producing small shoots that could potentially be brought out and sold for a significant profit once they arrived in the capital. Since valuable items were typically expensive, it was best not to have a large quantity of them. However, Qiao Xian could consider taking a few more orchids with her if she desired. Orchids thrived exceptionally well in her personal space. Carrying the precious orchid with her, Xiao Xian and her family embarked on their journey back home the next morning. Chapter 804. Accompany. The family returned home one day before Madame Qiao and her entourage did. And the once cold house became lively once again. Although Xiao Dalong and Miss Su were not present, they were not forgotten. They received numerous gifts from Miss Fong, including materials for clothes, needlework supplies and food and clothing for the children. Qiao Xian and Yang Xiaoni also prepared presents for Miss Su. Yang Xiaoni gave her a variety of pastries, nuts and snacks, while Qiao Xian gifted her a set of cosmetics and a pair of beautiful gold hairpins. Tao Tao also contributed by giving her a set of threads and needles. Miss Su was overjoyed to receive these gifts. Upon their return, Xiao Yunduan went to check on the progress of the school construction. B0X. Com, the land officer and elderly men from the clan were overseeing the construction, and everything was going well. The entire village was pleased to offer their assistance, making it a collaborative effort. Each household actively participated in the work. The school was expected to be completed within 10 to 20 days. Following that, there would be the installation of furniture, hiring of teachers, and all other necessary arrangements. Everything was proceeding smoothly. Li Xiao and Li Qiao were fully occupied with making lipsticks. They would create a set whenever a flower bloomed. As the rose flowers gradually diminished, there were fewer osmanthus and chrysanthemums available for making lipsticks. In about 2 weeks, the lipstick production would be temporarily halted. Qiao Xian mentioned that she could provide another set of around 1,000 lipsticks to Yuezheng Shao in the coming days. Additionally, she planned to deliver a batch of snow fungus and mushrooms before the new year. Furthermore, Qiao Xian contemplated hiring people to cultivate the field adjacent to the flower land she intended to purchase. This expansion would allow villagers to sell, rent, and exchange the land. She had no intentions of allocating more space for lipstick production as their current position was already advantageous. Considering their position in the village, this plan should be straightforward. It was evident that if the flower field expanded, her sisters-in-law and maids would not have enough spare hands to manage it. Therefore, Qiao Xian contemplated selecting a few intelligent and dependable girls to assist them. There was no need for Qiao Xian to keep the flower field a secret anymore. She could now hire people from the village to plant flower seeds, remove grass, trim and extract honey. Her family was strong enough to protect their own lipstick property. Qiao Xian shared this idea with Xiao Yunduan, who wholeheartedly agreed. Let's make all the arrangements before the new year, he suggested. After the new year, I will be heading to the capital for the examination, and one hope you can accompany me. Xiao Yunduan had grown accustomed to having Qiao Xian by his side. It wasn't just about taking care of him, but also providing him with a sense of security. The couple spent their time talking, strolling, and exploring. They enjoyed going sightseeing and shopping together. Xiao Yunduan was overjoyed to see Qiao Xian searching for various ingredients and picking out small items, as well as visiting bookstores with him. The thought of going to the capital alone and being separated from her was unbearable for him. Qiao Xian also had her own intentions. She wanted to prevent him from being swayed by others as a son-in-law. She wanted to see if he would remain devoted to her after achieving success. However, this was a natural expectation, a quiet waiting and companionship, rather than intentional tests. Chapter 805, Not test. It wasn't a test, it was giving him a hard time. But presenting her own plan and hearing his proposal were two separate matters. Qiao Xian felt her heart fill with sweetness as she listened to him. She smiled brightly and replied, "Yes, dealing with this matter won't be difficult at all. Third sister-in-law Tao Tao Chunyu and the other girls are skilled at making lipsticks. They can handle the entire task without any problem. Dealing with cassavas was much easier. They only needed to plant them, remove weeds during the harvest, and dry them in the sun before informing Yuezheng Shao to have them collected." In Zhang village, Manager Dong and his page boys decided to stay there. Qiao Xian trusted Ding Erju and his family to take care of the lands, tea leaves and creeping figs. Business and lands in the province were easier to manage. The Yuezheng B0XO Com family was providing assistance, so she didn't need to worry about anything. Qiao Xian continued discussing her arrangements, which uplifted Xiao Yunduan's spirits. His wife had planned everything. She wanted to go to the capital with him. How wonderful. We can leave much earlier, well ahead of time. There's no need to rush so we won't get tired. Darling, do you get seasick? We can rent a large ship and travel by sea. Xiao Liulang also paid a visit to Xiao Yunduan upon hearing of his return. He requested to borrow the study materials that Xiao Yunduan used when he was preparing to become a cultivated talent. Xiao Yunduan had always kept the materials in good order and well maintained. Initially he had planned to keep them as souvenirs, but if Xiao Liulang wanted to borrow them, he was generous enough to share them. The only condition was that Xiao Liulang took good care of them and returned them when he was finished. Xiao Liulang nodded and agreed, even expressing his gratitude before leaving. Miss Fang was taken aback by Xiao Liulang's reaction. She had expected him to cause a fuss. "Yunduan, what's going on with Liulang? He's acting so strangely," she exclaimed. Qiao Xian couldn't help but suppress her laughter. Eldest uncle wasn't pleased with the comment. "What do you mean? Liulang has made a decision to study hard. What's wrong with that?" "It's a good thing," he said, surprised and pleased by his nephew's behavior. Liulang was incredibly intelligent, and if he applied himself he would surely succeed in the imperial examination as well. The Shao family would have 2 advanced scholars and recommended men. Miss Fang rolled her eyes and had no interest in arguing with him. She couldn't shake off the feeling that Xiao Liulang's behavior was unusual. Xiao Yunduan and Qiao Xian exchanged a glance, sensing the same sentiment as Miss Fang. "It's all right, Mom. I believe my cousin must have thought it through. If he wants to work hard, it's a positive thing," Xiao Yunduan reassured her. "Really? Don't worry, Mom. Yes, you're right. It's good to have you here. You're just biased against him. How can you think that way?" "I have my reasons based on what he has said before. What's wrong with being cautious? You shouldn't be like this. Let's wait and see. The fox may grow gray but never good. We'll see how long he can hold on." The couple engaged in a heated argument. Well, they were free to argue if they wished. Xiao Yunduan had no intention of intervening in his parents' dispute. He held Qiao Xian's hand and said, "Let's go." Qiao Xian smiled and they returned to their own courtyard. "Do you think your cousin is acting strangely?" Chapter 806, Xiao Liulang's experience. "Things seem strange because there's something wrong. I don't know what he's planning, but I feel that he still holds a strong hostility towards you, me and our family." Qiao Xian agreed, nodding. "Yeah, that is true. I think you are right. I find him looking really strange, as if he had been stimulated." "Stimulated?" Xiao Yunduan was perplexed, although he shared Qiao Xian's sentiment. What could have possibly triggered such stimulation? If it was because of the provincial champion title he had earned? But that was a long time ago. B0XO What else could have gone wrong? The departure of the Zhao family wasn't considered a factor by either of them. Moreover, Shao Liulang and the Zhao family weren't particularly close. Unaware of Shao Liulang's misunderstanding of Zhao Ming's intentions, the couple assumed that Shao Liulang resented them for their involvement in his relationship with Zhao Ming. Let's not dwell on it, Shao Yunduan said. As long as he keeps his distance from our family, well, leave him be. If he ever dares to harm us again, I'll make sure he regrets it. Qiao Xian felt a sense of relief upon hearing those words and chuckled. That's true. I doubt he would dare to do anything to us with you around. With that, the couple put an end to their discussion. A few days later, Officer Qiao extended an invitation to Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan to visit the mansion once again. The couple readily agreed. They had plans to purchase land from the land agent and also visit the Zhang village to dig up some lotus roots and catch some crabs. The pond in the village contained a different kind of crab compared to the small ones found in the river. These crabs were specially bred and known for their tender flesh. The crabs could be prepared in various ways such as steamed, fried, or used in dishes like tofu stew and steamed buns. All of them were expected to be incredibly delicious. This time, Qiao Wei, Concubine Du and Qiao Ko were absent. However, Madame Qiao maintained her pleasant and friendly demeanor, wearing a pleasant smile. On the other hand, Officer Qiao seemed less pleased. Madame Qiao was worried that Qiao Xian might reveal what happened at Lingyuan Temple out of anger, so she coughed and redirected the conversation. Xian, we invited you here to discuss the matter of lipsticks. You are the one who makes them, right? Madame Qiao was being straightforward about the lipsticks. It was not a secret anymore since Ms. Mi Jr. had informed her about it. She had every right to bring it up for discussion. What Madame Qiao was unaware of was that Ms. Mi Jr. had not obtained any evidence. Qiao Xian was certain about this, although there wasn't much evidence to begin with, but none of that mattered to Qiao Xian. Whether or not Madame Qiao knew about it was inconsequential. It was better to address it now rather than later, after Shao Yunduan had left for the capital examination, when things could have gotten worse. Upon hearing this, Officer Qiao interjected, "You've been making lipsticks since last year, right? Why didn't you inform us about it? Were you planning to keep it hidden from us forever if your mother hadn't found out? If you had told us, I would have arranged for someone to promote this business and increase the production volume." Madame Qiao spoke gently, "Don't be angry, old master. We are also at fault for not asking them about it. If we had inquired, we would have known about it earlier. But it's never too late now, is it?" Madame Qiao sneered. She knew how to manipulate her husband with his personality. He wouldn't let go of such a lucrative opportunity. She didn't need to do anything except sit back and watch the drama unfold. Qiao Xian replied, "Father, what you don't know is that young Master Yuezheng entered into a deal with us because he trusted my husband. And it was my sister-in-law who discovered the formula, so young Master Yuezheng has been working closely with us. He even hired people to improve the formula." Chapter 807. Not lying, he is a sincere person and didn't deceive us or keep everything to himself, Qiao Xian explained. The limited production volume is due to the scarcity of raw materials. Young Master Yuezheng doesn't want the source to be revealed, so he has kept it concealed and asked us to do the same. We signed a contract with strict penalties for any breach. That's why we are cautious about spreading the information. Now we have a significant volume of lipsticks, but we can't openly disclose it. Mother, I'm curious, how did you find out about this? County Magistrate Qiao was skeptical. Are you telling the truth? Shao Yunduan nodded in agreement. Yes. B0XO. He would deal with the lies once they returned home. He was frustrated with his father-in-law. He always complained about not sharing things that brought profits, but if they had done so, they would have risked losing everything. County Magistrate Qiao hesitated. Qiao Xian seemed resolute, so he didn't think she was lying. Madame Qiao clenched her teeth in anger. She didn't believe a word that Qiao Xian said. Ms. Mi Jr. wouldn't have lied to her. She was certain that Ms. Mi Jr. must have told the truth about the source of the lipsticks. She had also observed how the first madam had defended Qiao Xian, although she was perplexed about the reason behind it. However, she was confident that even if Qiao Xian had lied to the old master, the Yuezheng family would assist her in maintaining the deception. She couldn't reveal the truth, even though she was aware of what was truly happening. If Qiao Xian had formed an alliance with the Yuezheng family against the old master, it would mean that she had a stronger bond with someone outside the family than with her own father. The old master would not tolerate such a situation and would surely reprimand her for her absurdity. But all of this was because she lacked evidence. Lipsticks are incredibly popular right now, and if you possess the instructions— Mother, Qiao Xian interrupted with a smile. The Shao family sold the instructions to young Master Yuezheng in exchange for money. Otherwise, how do you think we could afford to build a new house with glazed windows? You know very well the value of those windows. The couple. Officer Qiao's anger grew. Why didn't you inform us about this earlier? Indeed, Madame Qiao sighed. But we discovered this and invited you here to share the story. If we hadn't asked, we wouldn't have known anything. Xuan, what else have you kept hidden from the old master? He is your father. Officer Qiao snorted in frustration. Those who had lost the enticing prospect of becoming wealthy would naturally become furious, especially in the case of the Qiao family. They had missed the opportunity to obtain the instructions now that they belonged to the Yuezheng family. Shao Yunduan interjected, "Mother-in-law, you are mistaken about my wife. She doesn't conceal secrets. Qiao Xian has always been cautious and meticulous, never revealing anything that shouldn't be disclosed unless asked." Officer Qiao glanced at Madame Qiao knowingly. He understood all too well what had made Qiao Xian become such a cautious and guarded person. Madame Qiao found herself at a loss for words, growing increasingly irritated. She sneered and retorted, "So it's always your word against mine. I don't need the instructions, but we need the lipsticks as gifts for our acquaintances in the capital. Can you produce them?" She added with a tone of superiority, "Of course, we are willing to pay for them." Chapter 808, Grudge. Qiao Xian inwardly seethed. Of course you expect them for free? How shameless. Qiao Xian was well aware that Madame Qiao had no intention of paying for the goods. She was attempting to take advantage of being Qiao Xian's parents, expecting free items. But if she refused to provide anything in return, what options did they have? Steal from her? Officer Qiao chimed in, "These are exquisite and sought-after items. The noble ladies in the capital are knowledgeable and eager for something new. Giving us 300 or 500 units for New Year presents delivered to the capital is nothing, right? Xian's son-in-law, it's just a gift. You can surely produce them, can't you?" Officer Qiao always found ways to justify Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan, trying to help them escape from difficult situations. However, there was a limit to his patience. B0XO. He had also heard that the lipsticks were incredibly popular among the ladies in the province, and even noble and wealthy women were craving them. So if they could use them as gifts for their trip to the capital, it would be a wonderful thing, wouldn't it? Oh yes, he suddenly recalled something and added, "Young Master Yuezheng also has some limited editions, right? Give me 2 sets. Qiao Xian and Shao Yunduan. Father-in-law, I apologize if it seemed like I was intentionally provoking you. However, the limited versions of the lipsticks have already been reserved by noble ladies. The remaining ones are ordinary ones and we don't have the authority to sell them. Everything regarding the distribution and contracts is managed by Brother Yuezheng." Qiao Xian smiled, observing her father's pale face. "My husband is correct. The Yuezheng family is a prominent business family, and they ensure there are no loopholes for unauthorized access. While we maintain a good relationship with them, we maintain a clear distinction between personal matters and business affairs." Officer Qiao couldn't contain his anger any longer. "How dare you?" he snapped. "You're purposely trying to provoke me. What if I insist on obtaining them no matter what?" "I'm sorry, father-in-law, but I can't provide them for you. It's already quite cold, and the lipstick production is not suitable during this season. Besides, there won't be many available in any case." "You." Officer Qiao was fuming. Madame Qiao chimed in, fueling the conversation in a seemingly gentle manner. "Old master, please don't be angry. Xian and our son-in-law are honest individuals who uphold their promises." Officer Qiao's anger intensified. "But I am their father and father-in-law. Am I inferior to an outsider?" "Xian, apologize to your father. You are father and daughter and we can discuss everything together." Madame Qiao urged, trying to mediate the situation. Madame Qiao turned to Qiao Xian. Officer Qiao sneered. "Discussing everything? Bah. Since when would a father need to discuss anything? A daughter should always obey her father's words, or she was considered unruly." Qiao Xian remained composed, unaffected by her father's anger. Whether the couple was putting on a show or genuinely expressing their stance, it didn't matter to her. She simply didn't care. She wished her father would become so angry that he would disown her. She felt that she had nothing to lose and was not afraid of any consequences. Qiao Xian responded firmly, "We have already explained the situation to you. We cannot keep any lipsticks and the few we have are reserved for our immediate family members. It would be completely unfair for us to do otherwise, and we will never engage in such actions." Officer Qiao's anger reached its peak. Fine girl. You still hold a grudge against us, don't you? Chapter 809. Qjao Xian's accusation. Or she could simply approach Yuezheng Shao and ask for his agreement. She knew he would undoubtedly support her. In reality, she was merely making excuses to push her father away. She wasn't a dutiful daughter. How dare she behave this way? Officer Qiao was consumed by anger. B0XO. Calm. Qiao Xian remained silent. So did Shao Yunduan. Indeed, she harbored resentment towards her father. So what? Wasn't she entitled to feel that way? Officer Qiao was both taken aback and infuriated. You truly are an ungrateful daughter. I'll apologize, father. Mother never taught me how to be a filial daughter, so I have no understanding of it. You should comprehend that, shouldn't you? Qiao Xian, what are you saying? Madame Qiao was seething with rage and embarrassment. Qiao Xian looked up, her expression cold as she addressed her. You know perfectly well what I'm referring to. Mother once said that my mother seduced you, father, and how fortunate it was that she died young. Otherwise, mother would have made sure she suffered until her dying breath. You suggested that I should bear the suffering that was intended for my own mother. Enough. Silence. Madame Qiao snapped back, her voice filled with anger. You're lying. If it weren't for my generosity, you wouldn't have enjoyed a comfortable upbringing. You are nothing but a concubine's daughter. So you admit it? You did say that I should suffer and not be allowed an easy death. Why don't you own up to your words? My maids served you faithfully and never heeded my requests. I had to do everything myself. No one assisted me with bathing water. I was given tasteless and inferior food, worse than what was given to the maids and aunts. I was served cold and spoiled dishes in both winter and summer, and I was never provided with proper clothing. Whenever you were displeased with me, you and Qiao Wei took out your frustrations on me. Nonsense. Madame Qiao's voice grew hoarse. These are outrageous claims. Where is the evidence? Or are you simply fabricating lies? You will be punished for spreading falsehoods about your biological mother. Qiao Xian sneered. Evidence? Mother, you are the mistress of the Qiao mansion. Which evidence and which auntie would dare to step forward and defend me? It's a rather astute question you're posing. That's enough. Officer Qiao's realization hit him hard. He knew that Qiao Xian had been living a miserable life under their roof, but she was just a timid and insignificant concubine's daughter. Her presence had no bearing on their lives, so he had chosen to ignore her completely, thinking it wouldn't do them any harm. He couldn't possibly jeopardize his marriage for the sake of a concubine's daughter, could he? But he never expected that his legal wife had subjected his concubine's daughter to such torment, resulting in her deep-seated resentment towards them. Yet, despite the shock and fury he felt, he found himself blaming his concubine's daughter more than anything else. How foolish she was. She could have confided in him about her grievances. Instead, she kept everything bottled up only to plan her revenge. And why bring up all of this now, right in front of his son-in-law? In this moment he still felt compelled to defend his legal wife. Her reputation was intertwined with his own, after all. Girl, your mother couldn't have been such a malicious woman. There must have been some misunderstanding between you. The maids and the aunties must have acted on their accord. But your mother and I failed to consider that without your mother's presence, you would become a target for bullying. It was our fault. But it's also your fault too. You should have confided in us, and your mother and I would have stood up for you. Chapter 810. Lying furious, Qiao Xian couldn't believe how shameless and unreasonable her parents were becoming. They were twisting the truth and trying to appear reasonable even though they were clearly in the wrong. Shao Yunduan was both surprised and enraged. He never expected that Qiao Xian had endured such a terrible life before they got married. The thought of his beloved wife being bullied and humiliated without the means to fight back broke his heart. Officer father-in-law, Shao Yunduan said with a cold tone, my wife was subjected to bullying and humiliation, and yet you still blame her for it? If you had truly cared for her, you would have known everything that she went through. Or perhaps you did know but you allowed it to happen. Servants follow the orders of their masters and mistresses. If you had truly defended my wife, those maids and aunties would never have dared to mistreat her. Or are you suggesting that they had more authority than you in your own household? My wife couldn't have dared to speak up when no one was on her side. She wouldn't have survived until now. B0XO. Calm, officer father-in-law, why are you trying to deceive yourself? Officer Qiao gasped, his eyes widening in realization. He had so much to say in response to Shao Yunduan, but Shao Yunduan's composed demeanor made him feel overwhelming guilt. He could have continued deceiving himself, but he couldn't convince those who saw through his actions with clarity. What right did he have to argue back? Furious and filled with regret, Madame Qiao glared at Qiao Xian. What had compelled her to arrange Qiao Xian's marriage in the first place? She should have eliminated Qiao Xian so no one would ever bother her again. Girl, you are utterly heartless. I am your lineal mother. Yes, I have made mistakes, but you have turned out fine, haven't you? You can't just cast me aside. As a daughter, it is your duty to respect and assist your parents. It's only reasonable. You can't deny this. Even the emperor emphasizes filial piety, as do scholars. Those lacking filial virtue will never achieve any significant position. Agreeing with his wife, Officer Qiao nodded fervently. Absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Madame Qiao sneered and continued, furthermore, if it weren't for me, you would have never married Shao Yunduan. You were initially betrothed to County Magistrate Yang Jiandong in Lin County before the marriage arrangement with Shao Yunduan came about. If you had married him, you wouldn't be standing here today. Madame Qiao attempted to use the truth as a weapon to provoke disgust in them. Qiao Xian had never met her former fiancé, but there was indeed a man to whom she had been promised. Shao Yunduan couldn't help but feel a pang of distress upon hearing this revelation. After all, Qiao Xian had been coerced into marrying him, while the other man held the esteemed position of county magistrate and had achieved a high rank in the imperial examination, ranking third. The disparity in their social status was considerable. Naturally, people would assume that Qiao Xian wasn't particularly pleased about having her engagement forcefully broken and being compelled to marry someone else. Any man in Shao Yunduan's position would feel somewhat displeased with this history. However, what Madame Qiao was unaware of was that Qiao Xian not only harbored reluctance towards her current husband but had even attempted to take her own life in the bridal chamber. Although this tragic event stemmed from the experiences of the original host, the present Qiao Xian had to bear the consequences nonetheless. Chapter 8:11. Helping Qjao Xian and Qiao Xian was concerned that this revelation would make Shao Yunduan uncomfortable. Therefore, when Qiao Xian confronted Madame Qiao, she deliberately omitted mentioning the previous marriage alliance or Madame Qiao's attempt to have her killed, which Shao Yunduan had bravely foiled. However, to Qiao Xian's astonishment, Madame Qiao brought up the topic in a distasteful manner. Qiao Xian inwardly cursed her, considering her a despicable woman. She was about to respond when Shao Yunduan interjected, "My wife chose to marry me because it was our destiny to be together. We were meant to be together, and I consider myself fortunate to have her. Our family is blessed to have her. B0XO. I was nothing more than a low-ranking cultivated talent, while my wife's previous fiancé held the esteemed position of county magistrate. There was a significant disparity between us. Madame Qiao, did you truly marry off my wife to me for her own benefit?" Madame Qiao's eyes were widened. She had a plethora of schemes running through her mind, but she was left dumbfounded by this question. Could Shao Yunduan be so foolish as to degrade himself just to defend Qiao Xian? Qiao Xian was deeply touched. She looked at Shao Yunduan with overwhelming emotions, and he responded with a gentle smile, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. Internally, Qiao Xian was screaming with delight. She fought the urge to throw herself into his arms right then and there. Her husband was incredibly kind. He was standing up for her and making her feel immensely proud. She longed to flaunt this to the despicable couple before her. Qiao Xian felt that if she could boast in that moment, she would look down on the couple with her chin held high in the sky. County Magistrate Qiao was also taken aback by Madame Qiao's mention of this embarrassing incident. Feeling displeased, he coughed and calmly interjected, We need not discuss this matter right now." He aimed to win Shao Yunduan over to his side, so he genuinely didn't want to delve into the topic of Qiao Xian's previous engagement. Qiao Xian chimed in, "Why not?" Madame Qiao started it. "My husband is absolutely right. We are destined to be together, according to the will of heaven. Madame Qiao, you have no part in this. Or, why did my husband happen to rescue me when I was pushed into the water and on the verge of death?" She saw no reason to evade the truth when her husband was fine with it. What? Both Shao Yunduan and County Magistrate Qiao's faces changed simultaneously. Evidently, neither of them had prior knowledge of this incident. Madame Qiao was taken aback. She retorted, "Stop talking nonsense." "Nonsense? I wasn't a mere child. Why would I suddenly fall into the water? I know very well whether I was pushed or not. Moreover, I never explicitly accused Madame Qiao of being involved. Why are you getting so defensive now?" Madame Qiao stuttered, I just find it utterly ridiculous. But you're insinuating that it was me, aren't you? But it seems like you're making a confession." Shao Yunduan's anger and heartache grew stronger. He sneered, "Officer father-in-law, do you really think my wife would falsely confess to something like this?" County Magistrate Qiao forced himself to respond, "Wasn't it just an accident? Perhaps Xian is mistaken." Ignoring his weak answer, Shao Yunduan pressed on. "Let me take a guess. During that time, my wife's previous fiancé and his family came to discuss the marriage. Someone didn't want her to marry into a respectable family, so they orchestrated an incident like this. Isn't that right?" No, that's impossible," County Magistrate Qiao stuttered, realizing that his own denial was feeble. Shao Yunduan was correct. The Yang family had indeed come to discuss the wedding at that time. Chapter 8:12. Not part of the Qiao family, but Qiao Xian's innocence had been tarnished due to her connection with the man who rescued her from the water. County Magistrate Qiao grew furious and blamed Qiao Xian for bringing trouble to the family. As he reflected on the situation, even County Magistrate Qiao couldn't shake the feeling that it all seemed too coincidental. He even began to suspect that his wife might have been involved in orchestrating these events. Furious, County Magistrate Qiao shot a cold glare at Madame Qiao. Qiao Xian spoke calmly, "Madame Qiao accuses me of being unfilial. But I would like to ask, what have I done to deserve such a label? Did one break any contracts? Did I steal from my in-laws' family to benefit my own family?" County Magistrate Qiao and Madame Qiao were both taken aback by her words. Indeed, their actions had been forcing Qiao Xian to steal from her in-laws' family to help her own. Qiao Xian had been unwilling to comply, and she could not be considered unfilial. B0XO. Calm. The realization struck them both. It was Shao Yunduan who stood before them, witnessing everything. Forcing Qiao Xian to engage in such behavior right in front of her husband suddenly seemed incredibly wrong. Qiao Xian felt a strong sense of displeasure. She was a married daughter, spending time with her in-laws' family. As long as she didn't disrespect or mistreat County Magistrate Qiao and his wife, she should never be labeled as unfilial. After all, Qiao Xian, as a married daughter, was not bound by the fate of her family's exile and imprisonment. She was no longer a member of the Qiao family, and the notion of manipulating her with the concept of filial piety seemed absurd. Shao Yunduan sneered with disdain, firmly holding Qiao Xian's hand. "Darling, let's go. Officer father-in-law, unless you provide a clear explanation of the injustice my wife has endured, we will not attend any further summons from you." Qiao Xian chimed in, "Father, be cautious of your wife. She is capable of deceit and treachery." With those words the couple departed, arm in arm. Madame Qiao and County Magistrate Qiao were left in a state of shock, unable to utter a word. Suddenly, a loud bang broke the silence, jolting Madame Qiao from her daze. County Magistrate Qiao glared at her coldly, his voice filled with accusation. "Is what she said true? You..." But he couldn't bring himself to utter the words. His legal wife had attempted to harm his daughter, regardless of her status as a concubine's daughter. She was still his daughter. "No, old master, please," Madame Qiao pleaded, sounding as if she had been unjustly accused. "Qiao Xian set me up. She was trying to sow discord between us. Old master, don't fall for her ploy. She's trying to divert your attention from our demands." County Magistrate Qiao was caught in a whirlwind of confusion. He couldn't help but find his legal wife's words somewhat reasonable. Qiao Xian's accusation seemed like a diversion to avoid discussing their demands. "But you must be aware of how you have treated her." Madame Qiao wiped away her tears. "Old master, she is merely the daughter of a concubine, a product of the woman who betrayed me by sleeping with you. Old master, one to have emotions. How could I ever develop any fondness for her after what happened? But I have never mistreated her. I provided her with food, clothing, and daily necessities. While she might not have felt particularly well treated, the truth is, if I truly harbored such hatred towards her, I would have put an end to her existence long ago. As for how she ended up in the water, that you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.